Chapter 444. Inside the drill hall, Zheng Fong was like a private tutor, giving lectures to some of the disciples who came to ask for guidance. If it were not for others knowing his identity, they would definitely not associate him with the first elder of the Yuan sect. After all, the Yuan sect was known for their ruthlessness in the cultivation world. As the first elder of this sect, there was no way he would be soft-hearted. Well, that's all for the lecture. If you have any questions, you can exchange them among the disciples or ask your own teachers. Of course, you can come again next time. It's just that every time you come, you'll need to spend a lot of contribution points. Moreover, listening to the lecture is secondary. The main thing is whether you can comprehend it yourself. If you encounter a bottleneck in your cultivation, it's better to go out and experience it. Although the world is chaotic, it can also hone your body and mind, which will be of great benefit in the future. Zheng Fong looked at the dozens of disciples below and said with a calm voice, "After all, there were only a few people who could spend contribution points to listen to the lecture. After all, instead of spending contribution points to listen to the lecture, it was better to use contribution points to exchange for pills to improve one's strength, which was more cost-effective. Unless they really encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation, not many people would spend money for nothing. In the end, furthermore, he had spent too many contribution points to invite Zheng Fong, the first elder. Hearing that, the disciples below nodded and said, "We will remember the first elder's teachings. Go." Zheng Fong waved his hand and dismissed all the disciples. He then stood up from his seat like an ordinary old man, turned around, and left the drill hall. Perhaps it was because he was too old when he entered the cultivation world. Even if he broke through to the airborne realm and had a lifespan of hundreds of years, he still did not show much vitality. He was like a private tutor, doing everything in an orderly manner. When Zheng Fong left the drill hall, there was already an inner sect deacon waiting there. "First elder, someone from the Four Symbols sect is here." The Four Symbols sect? Zheng Fong's footsteps paused for a moment. He turned his head to look at the deacon with some doubt in his eyes. He was also very unfamiliar with that name. The deacon said, "The Four Symbols sect is one of the 51 sects that we sent a message to before." Who did the Four Symbols sect send? "An inner sect elder." "Then let him come here to see me." After a simple inquiry, Zheng Fong was too lazy to move. After leaving behind a sentence, he turned around and walked back. At this moment, in the drill hall, all the disciples left, and no one else stayed behind. After returning to his original seat, Zheng Fong leisurely sat down. He casually picked up a book beside him and began to read. Before long, one of the deacons of the inner court led a person to the hall. "First elder, I've brought him here." Elder Ying Wanyao of the Four Symbols sect greets the first elder of the Yuan sect. A middle-aged man standing beside him cupped his hands and greeted him. "Go ahead." Zheng Fong signaled with his eyes, and the inner sect deacon respectfully excused himself. Then he looked at the stool in front of him and said, "Elder Ying, please take a seat." "Thank you." Ying Wanyao cupped his hands together and thanked him. Soon after, he sat down. Looking at the person in front of him, Zheng Fong suddenly smiled faintly and said, "Speaking of which, the name Elder Ying sounds a little familiar. May I know what your relationship is with the former Ten Direction sect?" When he finished speaking, his gaze also fell on the other party's face. Hearing this, Ying Wenyao's expression was as usual as he said, "I was indeed a member of the Ten Direction sect before, but I left early on. Now, I'm an elder of the Four Symbols sect. Also, I never had any intention of becoming your sect's enemy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come this time. Elder Ying, please don't misunderstand." This old man was just casually asking. Zheng Fong didn't have much to say about this. "It's just that my sect has some ties with the Ten Direction sect, so I couldn't help but ask after hearing Elder Ying's name." "I see." Although Ying Wenyao had a smile on his face, his heart was already breaking out in cold sweat. What ties? It was clearly a small conflict that destroyed his Ten Direction sect. If it wasn't for him, the sect master, running away, he wouldn't have the chance to sit here now. Just now, when Zheng Fong mentioned the Ten Direction sect, Ying Wenyao almost thought that the other party was really going to kill him, not even letting him, a person who had already joined the Four Symbols sect, go. If it was someone else, he might not think so. But the person sitting opposite him was from the Yuan sect, so it was hard to say. After all, back then, the Yuan sect could directly destroy his Ten Direction sect because of a fight between some variant disciples and the death of a few disciples and deacons. With such a ruthless method, it was possible that the other party would bring up old scores. But after seeing Jing Fang's reaction, Ing Wenyao reluctantly relaxed. To tell the truth, this time, if it wasn't for Qi Yu's intention, he definitely wouldn't have stepped into the Liang Mountain spirit domain, let alone come to the Yuan sect. Although Ing Wenyao hid the fluctuations in his heart very well, that instant of rapid heartbeat still couldn't escape Jing Fang's perception. To this, he didn't threaten the other party too much. After all, the Ten Direction sect was destroyed. Since the sect master had escaped back then, it was his luck. At this moment, the other party represented the Four Symbols sect, so there was absolutely no reason for him to kill someone for no reason. I wonder why Elder Ing is here this time? Previously, our sect attacked the Yuan Pavilion because we were bewitched and threatened by the Heavenly Corpse sect. We had no choice but to do so. Sect Master has always felt guilty about this, but because of the pressure from the Heavenly Corpse sect, he couldn't express his position. Long before he came, Ing Wenyao had already thought of what to say. So when Zheng Fang spoke, he spoke frankly with assurance, throwing almost all the responsibility to the Heavenly Corpse sect. Now that the Heavenly Corpse sect has been destroyed, our sect was very happy when we heard the news. But when we thought of our previous wrong decision, we specially asked me to come and personally apologize to your sect. As for the losses that we have caused to your sect, our sect is willing to double the compensation. We only hope that your sect can see our sincerity and let bygones be bygones. At this point, Ing Wenyao had already taken out a storage ring from his bosom. He lifted it up with his true yuan and landed it in front of Zheng Fang. Looking at the storage ring in front of him, Zheng Fang was speechless for a moment. It had to be said. The other party's words were indeed flawless. He threw all the blame to the Heavenly Corpse sect without any hesitation. But for Yuan Zong, who was right and who was wrong didn't matter. In short, Yuan Zong would never be wrong. The only important thing in this matter was the word apology. As for the apology, it was just a matter of convenience. Zheng Fang picked up the storage ring and didn't hide anything. He directly dripped his blood on it to establish ownership. Then, his divine sense entered the ring and saw everything inside clearly. When his divine sense withdrew from the storage ring, there was a trace of a smile on his face. I naturally understand the Four Symbols sect's sincerity. After all, the Heavenly Corpse sect is also a top sect. I can understand that the Four Symbols sect is stuck in the middle. I just hope that you will be more cautious in the future. This time, our sect doesn't want to cause more trouble. If it were another sect, I'm afraid it would be a bloody storm. In the end, Zheng Fang's face became serious. In response, Ing Wenyao also looked serious and nodded solemnly. Elder Zheng's words are reasonable. I will definitely bring back your words and let the sect master know. That's good. Zheng Fang casually picked up a cup of tea beside him and took a sip. At this point, Ing Wenyao immediately stood up and cupped his hands politely. Our sect's sincerity has been conveyed. If there is nothing else, I will take my leave. I will ask someone to send Elder Ing off. Thank you. Ing Wenyao didn't refuse. This was Yuan Zong. An outer sect elder like him couldn't run around. If he ran around alone, Yuan Zong would use the excuse of trespassing as an excuse to kill him. Then, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Ing Wenyao only heaved a sigh of relief when he followed an inner sect deacon out of Yuan Zong's mountain gate. However, he saw a black-robed man sitting cross-legged beside the mountain gate stone tablet. Ing Wenyao's eyes flashed with curiosity. He couldn't help but turn his head and ask, "May I ask who this expert is from your sect?" "I'm not sure." The outer sect deacon shook his head slightly. In response, Ing Wenyao didn't ask any more questions. In his opinion, the other party didn't want to tell him too much. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but take a few more glances at Zhang Feng. Unfortunately, under the cover of the black robe, a cultivator's naked eye couldn't see through it. Subsequently, Ing Wenyao cupped his hands towards the inner sect deacon and left Yuan Zong's mountain gate completely. After leaving Yuan Zong, He recalled everything that he had noticed when he first entered Yuanzong's mountain gate. The mountain gate's spiritual energy is so dense, several times stronger than the four symbol sects. Is this the foundation of a top sect? With such dense spiritual energy, it's no wonder Yuanzong's experts are born one after another. If this continues, I'm afraid there won't be many sects that can compete with Yuanzong in a few years. Ing Wenyao shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He jumped up and flew away like a big bird, disappearing from where he stood in the blink of an eye. Cultivators who hadn't reached the fourth level of the spiritual martial realm weren't qualified to fly. Now, Ing Wenyao was going to Cold Mountain City, which was known as the biggest city in Baiyun Mansion. On the other side, after Ing Wenyao left, Zhang Fong also stood up and kept the storage ring given to him by the Four Symbols sect, after which he headed to the treasury of the sect and displayed his identity token before placing all the resources in the storage ring into it. This time, the Four Symbols sect had put in a lot of effort. The compensation given by the other party was worth more than 50 million taels of silver. 50 million taels of silver. For a sect of the spiritual domain, it wasn't something that could be taken out in a short time. From this, it could be seen that, this time, the Four Symbols sect was really sincere in their apology. With the arrival of the Four Symbols sect, in the next few days, the other sects also sent people over one after another. Without exception, they all gave corresponding compensation. The value wasn't all the same. But there was one thing that was the same. That was, none of the sects gave less than 20 million taels of silver. In a short time, Yuanzong's treasury was filled with resources worth hundreds of millions of taels of silver. However, when the one-month deadline was up, only a third of the 51 sects had sent gifts of apology. As for the remaining 30 or so sects, there was no movement at all. In fact, some sects only sent a message to express their apology and didn't do anything else. These sects and forces were all on Yuanzong's blacklist. Qingwu Hall. After a month, many elders gathered here again. This time, the person who presided over the meeting wasn't Qin Shujian, but the great elder technique imparting. After everyone had arrived, Zhang Fong coughed in a low voice, looked at the others and said calmly, "You should all know why I've gathered all the elders here. Please speak clearly, great elder." A month has passed, but 33 sects still haven't made a statement. This is looking down on the existence of Yuanzong. If that's the case, then we'll just destroy them, Zheng Gui said in a low voice. As the leader of the biggest mountain bandits in the stone forest, his killing intent was still very strong. Hearing this, Niu Feng nodded slightly and said, "The remaining 33 sects dared to do this because we didn't give them enough pressure. If we don't make a statement, people will see clearly." That's right. Most of the other elders also nodded their heads in agreement. To put it bluntly, most of the people who were able to become elders of Yuan's sect were the same group of people from Cold Mountain Stronghold. To them, mercy didn't exist. As for Xiang Haogan, Shen Yuqing and the others, they remained silent. In the current situation, even if they objected, it would be useless. Therefore, it was better to remain silent and watch the development of the situation. Shen Yuhua, who had been silent and rarely interjected, said at this time, "Now, in the cultivation world of Baiyun Mansion, our sect is the leader. Moreover, with the opening of Yuan Pavilion, many rogue cultivators are working for us. In this way, we don't have to deal with those sects by ourselves." Elder Yuhua, what do you mean? Why don't we issue an edict and ask the other sects in Baiyun Mansion to help? At most, we'll give some benefits. In this way, we can establish our supreme position in Baiyun Mansion. Shen Yuhua's beautiful eyes flashed, and then she said in a clear voice, "Although rogue cultivators generally aren't strong, there are many experts among them. Originally, our Yuan Pavilion didn't offer enough rewards, so we didn't attract their attention. Those great cultivators of the spirit martial realm and the god martial realm, after reaching this level, are only after a higher level of cultivation methods or treasures that can directly increase their cultivation. With the current situation of our sect, it's not difficult to take out these things. Why don't we issue a mission directly in Yuan Pavilion and mobilize these top rogue cultivators? At that time, it won't be difficult to deal with the 33 sections. Moreover, Shen Yuhua's gaze swept across the faces of everyone in the hall, and finally, a beautiful smile appeared on her face. The reason why the 33 sects haven't done anything now is because they think that we won't really do it. As long as we use this method to destroy a few of them, the remaining sects will be afraid. At that time, even if we don't do anything, they will come forward to apologize. At the end, Shen Yuhua added, "Of course, this is just my clumsy opinion. If there's anything wrong with what I said, I hope that the elders won't take offense." Yuhua's words are not wrong at all. Zhang Fang smiled and nodded. He had a new understanding of the hall master of the alchemy hall, but thinking about it, it was normal. After the destruction of the pill tripod sect, she was still able to escape and evade the pursuit of the celestial sect all the way to the Liang Mountain Spirit region. If she didn't have any tricks up her sleeves, she would have died in the hands of the celestial sect. As for what Shen Yuhua said, Zhang Fang understood in his heart. The reason why the 33 sects did this was because the current situation was different from before. Previously, the Heavenly Corpse sect was pressuring them and Yuan sect had to take risks to break the stalemate. Now, Yuan sect was advancing and retreating in an orderly manner, and the situation was good. This way, as long as they didn't deliberately target them, Yuan sect wouldn't break the current stable situation because of this matter. It could be said that there wasn't anything wrong with the way the 33 sects thought. However, the mistake of these sects was that they didn't understand Yuan sect well enough. Shen Yuqing at the side. At this moment, he looked at Shen Yuhua with a slightly surprised expression. His sister was usually very quiet, almost like him. During meetings, she was no different from an invisible person. However, this time, she directly spoke. Su Yuanming smiled faintly. "I remember that the sect master still has the pure yang pill. This is the most valuable treasure for prominent divine stage cultivators to break through to the god martial stage. If we release the news of the pure yang pill, we should be able to attract many people. As for this time, we also obtained the soul conduit realm cultivation technique and martial arts from the Heavenly Corpse sect. I believe that the cultivation technique and martial arts that lead to the heavenly stage should be enough to attract people like a flock of ducks. Treasures arouse the envy of others." That was for the weak. For the current Yuan sect, even if they publicly announced that they had the soul conduit realm cultivation technique and martial arts, no one would dare to have the thought of snatching it. On the contrary, if they used this as a gimmick, it would be enough to attract many people. At the same time, it would further expand the influence of Yuan sect. As for whether there would be enough people qualified to exchange for the soul conduit realm cultivation technique, that was another matter. However, for the cultivators who had no way to advance, as long as they saw a glimmer of hope, it was enough for them to risk their lives. Su Yuanming's words made the others secretly nod their heads. Fortune-telling, fortune-telling, misfortune-telling, fortune-telling, 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 fortune-telling. On a busy street, an old Taoist priest was sitting in front of a table. His clothes had been washed so many times that they had turned white. There were even a few patches on his sleeves. He was muttering something to the passers-by. The table was also missing a leg, and there was a flat stone under it to prevent it from falling. Behind the table, there was a long banner that was barely intact placed against the wall. The words written on it were probably the words that the old Taoist was chanting. Regarding this, the surrounding people were already used to it. No one would stop and look for a fortune teller. Even the players turned a blind eye to this old Taoist priest. In the beginning, many players believed that the old Taoist priest was a hermit expert, and that his fortune-telling was merely a means for him to hide from the world. Then, he paid a lot of money and foolishly went to have his fortune told. Only then did these players realize. This old Taoist priest was really an ordinary fortune teller. Moreover, his fortune-telling was not very accurate. The only thing he could do was to fool people. When they realized this, no one would be fooled anymore. Sigh. Business is not easy these days. The old Taoist priest sighed helplessly as he looked at the passers-by. None of them stopped walking. His appearance also looked somewhat miserable. However, in the blink of an eye, the old Taoist priest returned to his cheerful appearance and threw away all his worries. The Yuan Pavilion has now revoked the bounty missions of many sections. However, they have increased the bounty of the remaining sections. It seems that they have even offered a divine connection technique as a reward. Divine connection technique? Could it be a technique above the divine level? Nonsense. Above the divine level is the divine connection technique. Don't you know this? A group of players walked past the old Taoist priest and were constantly chatting. The actions of the Yuan sect this time had moved many players. Divine connection technique? To put it bluntly, it was a supreme technique that could be cultivated to the celestial being level. To the players, this was equivalent to the top treasure in the current stage of the game. If they could obtain a divine connection technique, at least before they broke through to the celestial being level, they would only need to focus on killing monsters and leveling up. They would not have to worry about the technique at all. After obtaining a technique, they could focus on killing monsters for a period of time. When they came out, they would really be a top expert. Moreover, the technique could be used in the real world. Who knew if the so-called divine connection technique could be cultivated to the level of ascension in the real world? If it could be done, then it would be an immortal technique. As for the old Taoist priest, his expression froze at this moment. A ray of light burst out from his turbid eyes. Divine connection technique? He murmured. His mind, which had been calm for a long time, finally began to ripple. How many years had it been? The old Taoist priest could not remember clearly. It could be a few decades, or it could be 100 years. He did not know when it started, but many things had become unimportant to him. They could not cause his mind to ripple. However, after hearing what the players had said, the old Taoist priest's heart was no longer calm. Divine connection technique? This was the inheritance of any top sect. It was also a treasure that those sects would not easily give out. Even among the powerhouses in the same sect, there were not many who were qualified to peek at the divine connection technique. Divine connection technique, directly to the celestial being level. After thinking about the word celestial being, the old Taoist priest finally could not control himself. A power that had been dormant for a long time suddenly burst out. In an instant, the entire city seemed to be covered by a terrifying aura. It startled all the cultivators and caused their expressions to change. Soon, the old Taoist priest realized that he had lost his composure and immediately retracted this power. In the next second, he took a step forward and disappeared in front of the stall. As for the players who passed by, they all stared at the empty stall with their mouths agape. There was only one word left in their minds. This old Taoist priest. This senior is really a hidden expert. Damn, this is a huge loss. Why didn't I persist in the beginning? If I had persisted, wouldn't I have made a fortune? Some of the players thumped their feet and stomped their chests. They felt that they had missed a huge opportunity. Without a doubt, this old Taoist priest was obviously a top powerhouse who played games in the human world. However, what made them feel bitter was that by the time they reacted, the old Taoist priest was already gone. Chapter 445. Just as Su Yuanming had said, when the Yuan Pavilion released the Divine Connection Cultivation Method and Divine Connection Martial Arts, many loose practitioners who were traveling in the mortal world were alarmed. These wandering cultivators. Almost all of them were top experts among the wandering cultivators in the cultivation world. The reason why they wandered the world was to sharpen their Tao heart and seek opportunities to break through. People who had reached this stage. Basically, they would choose to do this when their cultivation had reached a level where they could no longer advance. As early as when Yuan Pavilion was opened, they had already noticed the existence of this place. But, for these people, even divine level cultivation method and martial arts could hardly move them. But now it was different. Divine Connection Cultivation Method, Divine Connection Martial Arts. All of them were supreme treasures that were above the divine martial realm. The divine martial realm had a lifespan of up to 3,000 years. The celestial realm had a lifespan of 5,000 to 7,000 years. It could be said that once one broke through to the celestial realm, one's lifespan would immediately increase from 3,000 years to 5,000 years. To a certain extent, such a leap could already be considered as longevity. One should know that the lifespan of the spirit martial realm was generally 1,000 years. After breaking through to the divine martial realm, one's lifespan would start from 1,000 years and slowly increase to 3,000 years. As for the divine martial realm, just crossing this threshold would directly increase one's lifespan by 2,000 years. This point alone was enough to make everyone crazy. For the wandering cultivators, some people with great opportunities might not be unable to obtain divine level cultivation method, and might not be unable to cultivate to the divine martial realm or even the peak of the divine martial realm. But the leap from the divine martial realm to the celestial realm was not something that could be achieved by simple opportunities. Divine connection cultivation method. It had always been in the hands of the top sections. Even to say that, some ordinary sects were not qualified to have such a level of cultivation method. This was also the reason why there were few celestial realm experts in the cultivation world for so many years. On one hand, it was extremely difficult to break through to the celestial realm. On the other hand, it was the restriction of the cultivation method. But now it was different. Yuan Pavilion released the news of the divine connection cultivation method. Even if many people thought it was just a gimmick, it was enough to make everyone crazy. Such madness. Not only the wandering cultivators, but even some sects of the major regions, as well as the major sects of the spirit domain, would be tempted. There was no one who did not wish for their sect to be promoted to a top sect. However, the prerequisite for becoming a top sect was to possess the combat power of a diviner. Just this point alone cut off everyone's hopes. This was especially true for the sects and clans of the major regions. Throughout history, there had always been strong cultivators at the peak of the divine martial arts realm. However, there was almost no one who could truly cross this threshold. The reason for this was due to the limitations of the cultivation method. Divinity realm techniques were hard to come by. Aside from the divinity cultivation methods in the hands of the top sects, it was even more difficult to obtain the legacy of the strong than to break through to the celestial realm. Therefore, when the news spread that the Yuan Pavilion had divine connection cultivation techniques that could be exchanged for, it caused a huge commotion that was much bigger than what Yuan Zong had expected. Connecting to divinity technique. After Fang Xinglan heard this news, his fingers trembled slightly, and his expression could no longer remain calm. It wasn't just him. Even Mu Liang, the leader of the Heavenly Array sect, felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Martial uncle, do you think Qin Shujian will really take out the divine connection cultivation method? It's hard to say. This person's actions go against common sense. Perhaps he will really take out the divine connection cultivation method. Fang Xinglan took a few deep breaths, calmed down the trembling emotions in his heart, and then opened his mouth to speak. A cold light shot out from Mu Liang's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, "If it's true, then we must obtain this divine connection cultivation method." It's easier said than done to obtain the divine connection cultivation method. Even if Yuan Zong really takes it out for exchange, the requirements are not low at all. Fang Xinglan shook his head. In order to exchange for the divine connection cultivation method, one must first reach the level of the Jade Token Envoy. As for the Jade Token Envoy, one must complete 10 level 5 missions, 3 level 6 missions, and 1 level 7 mission before being qualified to be promoted. As for the requirements of level 7 missions, he had some understanding of them. Back then, the Yuan Pavilion had placed a bounty on the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the completion condition of the mission was to destroy a top sect. It was a level 7 mission. From this, it could be seen that the level 7 mission was extremely difficult. It wasn't something that ordinary people could complete. However, no matter how small the probability of becoming a Jade Token Envoy was, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, it would still make people yearn for it. Hearing this, Mu Liang's expression was firm, and even a little crazy and passionate. So what if it's difficult? We must obtain the divine connection cultivation method of Yuan Pavilion. If there are no accidents, the divine connection cultivation method that Yuan Pavilion is offering should be the inheritance of the Heavenly Corpse sect. His obsession with the divine connection cultivation method. He was not much lower than anyone else. This was because the sect master of the Heavenly Array sect had also reached the peak of the divine martial realm. After taking another step forward, he would be able to reach the Heavenly Man realm. The reason why the Heavenly Array sect was a top sect was because they had the means of a formation Dao Grandmaster. If this point was ignored, they were actually no different from ordinary large sections. The divine connection cultivation method was also something that the Heavenly Array sect needed. In the past, there was also a formation Dao Grandmaster of the Heavenly Array sect who used his own strength to search for the divine connection cultivation method in the world. However, in the end, he only obtained an incomplete cultivation method. Although the method to reach the Heavenly Man realm was recorded in this cultivation method, it was extremely difficult. However, the difficulty of successfully cultivating it was extremely high, and the risk was not small at all. Because of this, even though the Heavenly Array sect had the status of a top sect and controlled the resources of a top sect, they had never produced a true Heavenly Man realm expert. This matter had always been a sore point of the Heavenly Array sect. So what if one was at the peak of the divine martial realm? So what if one was comparable to a Heavenly Man realm expert? As long as one did not truly break through to the Heavenly Man realm, it would be difficult to cross the limit of one's lifespan no matter how powerful one was. Therefore, after the Yuan Pavilion released the news of the divine connection cultivation method, this top sect was also tempted. At this time, Feng Xinglan sighed deeply. The Heavenly Array sect is really decisive. After doing this, I'm afraid that the Yuan Pavilion's power has firmly suppressed all the other sections. If it was said that the influence of the Yuan Pavilion had been weakened by a lot when the various sects opened businesses similar to the Yuan Pavilion before, then, after the Yuan Pavilion took out the divine connection cultivation method, the influence of the Yuan Pavilion would definitely soar, leaving the other sects far behind. Moreover, there was almost no hope of catching up. The last time the Yuan Pavilion opened to recruit rogue cultivators, it violated the interests of all the sections. It separated the rogue cultivators and sects in the cultivation world, and took a part of it for its own interests. This time, the divine connection cultivation method was to distinguish all the sects from the real top sects that had Heavenly Men realm experts. This was because the exchange of the divine connection cultivation method only touched the interests of the top sections. But for the rogue cultivators and other sects, this was a great thing. Therefore, compared to the first time, there was the risk of becoming the target of public criticism. This time, the Heavenly Array sect was as stable as Mount Tai. This was also something that Feng Xinglan could not help but admire. Decisive in action, astonishing courage. After all, many top sects had divine connection cultivation methods, but there would never be a sect that dared to publicly throw out their own inheritance. There had never been a top sect that dared to have such an idea. It could be said that the Heavenly Array sect's move affected the entire cultivation world, and at the center of the storm were the top sects that had Heavenly Men realm experts. However, although Feng Xinglan and Mu Liang had the idea of getting the divine connection cultivation method, they also understood that with the reputation of the Heavenly Array sect, they definitely could not go to the Yuan Pavilion directly. Otherwise, it would be slapping their own face. If they could not go to the front openly, then they would hide their identity. Anyway, most of the people who accepted the task in the Yuan Pavilion did not know who was who, and only used the identity token as a basis. It was similar to the practice of the Heavenly Array sect. It was a condensed shadow of the many sects in the current cultivation world. Especially the sects of the big regions, they were even more eager to get it. Because in the sects of the big regions, most of the forces had experts of the divine martial arts realm, and some even had great practitioners of the peak of the divine martial arts realm. For them, the only thing that stopped them from going further was the door to the Heavenly Man realm. The divine connection cultivation method was the key to opening this door. As for whether they had the ability to really open the door after it was unlocked, that was another matter. But if they could not even open the lock in front of the door, then they could forget about the rest. Therefore, for these sects, obtaining the divinity realm cultivation method was something they had to do. On the other side, one of the 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao, the West Chong Prefecture, the Supreme Sect. Boom! A terrifying power erupted from the sect, and the impact caused the clouds to disperse. In an instant, the sky changed color, and everyone looked in the direction of the source of the aura with horror. Brat! Brat! Su Zheng was furious. Everything around him had been destroyed by the aura he emitted, and even the ground had cracked a lot. Regarding this, the anger in his heart did not stop at all. Ever since he learned that the Yuan Pavilion had publicly released the Divine Connection cultivation method, Su Zhang had the impulse to destroy the entire Yuan Pavilion and even the Yuan sect. If not for the fact that the Yuan sect had previously destroyed the Heavenly Corpse sect and was suspected to have subdued the Heavenly Corpse Jiangfeng, which made him fearful, the Supreme Sect would have already sent experts to the North Cloud Prefecture's Liang Mountain spiritual region to completely destroy the Yuan sect. The Yuan Pavilion's matter has affected the foundation of many sects in the cultivation world. Now that they have released the Divine Connection cultivation method, they are openly dividing the foundation of our top sections. I will definitely not let you off for this. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In the end, Su Zhang directly cursed out loud. He wasn't a refined person to begin with. As the sect master of the Supreme Sect, he was already known for his violent and rough temper. However, as a heavenly human cultivator, no one dared to say anything. It was the first time Su Zhang had encountered someone like Yuan Zong, who directly jumped up and slapped his face in public. As for the other Supreme Sect elders, under the cover of this aura, their hearts trembled. Fortunately, Su Zhang's aura erupted for only a moment, and it quickly disappeared without a trace. When the aura dissipated, these elders could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Facing Su Zhang's anger, no one said anything, because they knew that it was useless to say anything now. Yuan Zong's actions happened to borrow the current general trend of the cultivation world. It was not something that could be stopped by one or two top sects joining forces. Moreover, ignoring the power of the cultivation world, Yuan Zong's strength was not weak. A Sky Corpse and an Array Formation Grandmaster. They had the combat strength of two heavenly humans. With such strength, even if the Supreme Sect wanted to go against them, both sides would most likely suffer. The circulation of the Divine Connection cultivation method had a great impact on top sects like them. However, if they were to fight to the death with a tyrannical top sect, they would have to consider whether this loss was worth it. After a long time, Su Zhang suppressed the anger in his heart, but his eyes became extremely cold. Yuan Zong, Qin Shujian. These two names were now deeply engraved in his mind. If there was a chance, Su Zhang would definitely not mind teaching the other party a deep lesson. However, after the anger, he also felt a little helpless. Indeed, Yuan Zong's current actions were right in front of the Supreme Sect's lifeline. First, the Yuan Pavilion was opened. Now, the news of the Divine Connection cultivation method was released. Yuan Zong's power could be said to be like the sun in the sky in the entire cultivation world. If the Supreme Sect wanted to contend with him, they would have to take out the Divine Connection cultivation method. However, this was impossible for the Supreme Sect or any other top-notch great sect. The Divine Connection cultivation method was related to the inheritance and lifeline of a sect. If it was spread out and someone found the flaw in the cultivation method, it would definitely be a devastating blow to the sect. Yuan Zong could do this. That was entirely because the Divine Connection cultivation method that Yuan Zong had obtained came from the Heavenly Corpse sect. It could not be considered a true inheritance cultivation method within the sect. Just as all the top sects were furious, but there was nothing they could do. The 33 sects, who had originally turned a blind eye to Yuan Zong's message, were now in a difficult situation. Boom! A terrifying fluctuation spread out, and a mountain-protecting array shattered with a loud bang. Who dares to invade my Green Rainbow sect? Quickly send a message. A strong enemy has invaded. The disciples guarding the mountain gate looked at the mountain-protecting array that had been broken with a loud bang, and their faces were filled with shock. The mountain-protecting array. That was the first line of defense of the Green Rainbow sect. Even a great cultivator of the divine martial realm would not be able to break through this array so quickly. At this moment, there was no need to send a message. The commotion caused by the shattering of the mountain-protecting array had long alarmed the other experts in the Green Rainbow sect. Immediately, one after another, tyrannical auras erupted, and one after another, people rose into the air and rushed towards the mountain gate. There it was. An old Taoist with tattered clothes, who looked like a beggar, was slowly walking towards the Green Rainbow sect's mountain gate. When they saw who it was, the disciples of the Green Rainbow sect all made their moves. For a time, astral energy filled the air. However, before the sharp astral energy could even touch the old Taoist, it had already dissipated at a distance of 10 meters away. With every step the other party took, the ground beneath his feet rippled slightly. All the disciples who touched it felt as if they had been struck by lightning. After stiffening for a moment, they fell to the ground and died. Martial arts realm, true martial realm, spirit martial realm. No matter what level the cultivator was at, when the old Taoist walked past them, they all fell to the ground and died. They couldn't even struggle. In a short moment, there were already heavy casualties at the mountain gate. As for the remaining Green Rainbow sect disciples, when they saw the strange scene in front of them, they were so scared that they retreated one after another, as if they had seen something unbelievable. Retreat. Quick. If the other party had made a move, then even if they were defeated, these people wouldn't have been so shocked. However, the other party didn't make a move. He just walked with his hands behind his back and killed people without a trace. Such a shocking method made the other disciples of the Green Rainbow sect understand that the two sides were not on the same level at all. The old Taoist's strength must have reached an unfathomable level. At this time, the experts of the Green Rainbow sect had finally arrived. The first to arrive was an elder of the Zephyr realm. When he saw the many disciples who had fallen to the ground and died, the elder was immediately enraged. Without thinking too much, he immediately summoned a spirit artifact sword and slashed at the old Taoist. Anyone who invades my Green Rainbow sect, die. The sword astral that was over 10 feet long slashed down, giving off an unstoppable might. The old Taoist's footsteps did not stop. He raised his head to look at the sword astral that was slashing down and shook his head slightly. An ant trying to shake a tree, a futile struggle. With that, he pointed his finger into the distance. In that instant, a terrifying force that seemed to be able to shatter the void instantly erupted. In front of this force, the sword astral was as weak as paper. In the blink of an eye, it was completely destroyed by this force. In the next moment, the spirit artifact sword shattered. The elder of the airborne realm didn't even have the time to react before he was completely engulfed by this force. Boom! His body exploded in the air, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. An airborne realm fighter was easily blasted into smithereens, as if he was unable to fight back at all. Seeing this scene, many people were absent-minded again. Elder Zhang is dead? Impossible. How could Elder Zhang die so easily? Some of the disciples of the Green Rainbow sect looked at the scattered blood mist and shook their heads as they muttered to themselves in disbelief. This Elder Zhang was one of the top 5 experts in the Green Rainbow sect. In the end, in the hands of the other party, he didn't even last a single round. Immediately, some people felt that a calamity was about to befall the Green Rainbow sect this time. Just as this elder fell, the sect master of the Green Rainbow sect, a great cultivator of the illustrious Saint stage, finally rushed over. Along with him were a few other elders of the Green Rainbow sect. The few of them arrived a little late, but not too late. They just happened to see the scene of the elder being killed. Right now, the sect master of the Green Rainbow sect was no less shocked than the others. It was only because he was the sect master that he couldn't retreat at the last minute that he had been forcefully holding on. May I ask, Senior, if my Green Rainbow sect has offended you in any way? If so, I am willing to apologize. I hope that Senior will not lower himself to our level. Wei Haiji could only greet him with a smile, afraid that he would anger the old Taoist in front of him again. As for the death of an elder or a disciple, it wasn't the most important thing for him right now. The most important thing right now was to protect the entire Green Rainbow sect. Otherwise, everything would be empty talk. Standing in front of the old Taoist, Wei Haiji couldn't feel the slightest bit of the other party's depth. He was just like an ordinary old man, as if he didn't have the slightest bit of cultivation. Regarding this, he was even more shocked. The more he couldn't find out, the more unfathomable the other party was. Until now, Wei Haiji had never thought of where the Green Rainbow sect had offended such an expert. The old Taoist also stopped in his tracks. His turbid eyes looked at Wei Haiji as he slowly shook his head and said, "This old Taoist is just someone's money. If you want to blame someone, blame the Green Rainbow sect for offending someone they shouldn't have offended. Receiving money from others, eliminating disasters for others. Hearing this, Wei Haiji's expression immediately changed as he cried out involuntarily. Senior came from the Yuan Pavilion. At this point, if he still didn't understand the other party's background, then he would be the head of a sect in vain. After the shock passed, Wei Haiji immediately said, I wonder what benefits the Yuan Pavilion has given Senior. My Green Rainbow sect is willing to pay double the price. Can't the Green Rainbow sect afford this price? Senior, please speak clearly. I will do my best to satisfy your request. Does the Green Rainbow sect have a divine technique? Divine technique? Hearing this, Wei Haiji's mind buzzed. He finally knew what kind of conditions the Yuan Pavilion had offered to invite such an expert to destroy his Green Rainbow sect. Thinking of this, Wei Haiji did not give up and asked, Senior, could it be that the Yuan Pavilion has taken out a divine technique to reward my Green Rainbow sect? Do you think the Green Rainbow sect is worthy? The old Taoist shook his head and didn't plan to waste any more words. He immediately sent out another finger seal. The finger aura seemed to be able to shatter the galaxy, causing Wei Haiji's expression to change. Immediately after, a green copper mirror appeared, and 2 Dao seals appeared on it. Immediately after, a ray of green rainbow light shot out, and the finger aura collided with each other. Boom! A terrifying fluctuation erupted. The green rainbow light only lasted for 1 or 2 breaths of time before it directly shattered. But at the same time, the power of the finger aura had also been weakened by a lot. In the end, it bombarded the green copper mirror, causing the mirror to tremble. A rebounding force landed on Wei Haiji's body, causing his qi and blood to surge. Dao artifact? The old Taoist's eyes changed a little, but his expression was as calm as ever. If you rely on a 2-seal Dao artifact, you won't be able to stop this old Taoist. Finished. He had already made his move again. On the other side, Wei Haiji forcefully suppressed his surging qi and anxiously shouted, Senior, please stop. However, just as he finished speaking, the attack had already descended once again. Helpless, he could only use the green copper mirror to block the old Taoist's attack. Right now, the only thing that could contend against him was the Green Rainbow sect's Dao artifact. However, although the Dao artifact was strong, it still depended on who had it in their hands. In addition, the green copper mirror was only a 2-seal Dao artifact, and it was not focused on defense. After blocking 2 attacks, Wei Haiji was finally injured by the backlash. Quick, lend me a hand. Wei Haiji wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and shouted angrily. The other party clearly wanted to kill the Green Rainbow sect. In this situation, if he did not defeat the other party, the Green Rainbow sect would definitely be destroyed. After hearing Wei Haiji's words, the few elders of the Green Rainbow sect did not hesitate at all. Immediately, a few people stood behind Wei Haiji and transferred all the true essence in their bodies to him. Immediately after, the green copper mirror shone brightly. Chapter 446. Gathering the power of a few elders, Wei Haiji pushed the power of the Green Rainbow sect's Dao artifact to its limit. The green bronze mirror floated in the air, and a dim light shone from it. Then, as if the vast light had gathered into a terrifying eye, a terrifying power shot out from the eye. Come at me. The old Taoist's expression became serious. He slowly struck out with his palm, and his power was like a mountain toppling the sea. The palm aura grew to a size of over 100 feet, and an aura that could crush the void erupted. Bang! With a palm strike, the dim light shattered. The huge eye that had been condensed forcefully withstood the attack. Then, the eyes of the dark light were filled with cracks, as if they would shatter at any moment. However, as Wei Haiji's true essence surged in, the cracks healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, the old Taoist flicked his sleeve, and a vast amount of astral energy blasted out, once again extinguishing the dim light that shot out from his eyes. In the next moment, a vast spirit god spread out from his body, and then he reached out with his palm from his sleeve, imprinting it in a mysterious trajectory. A cool breeze rose from the ground. In an instant, It swept out in all directions. All the disciples of the Green Rainbow sect who were affected stood rooted to the ground. In the next second, they saw their bones and flesh turn into dust and dissipate into the air. At this moment, the green bronze mirror shone brightly, as if it had sensed some terrifying threat. The eyes formed by the dim light erupted with strong fluctuations, trying to block the old Taoist's attack, but to no avail. Shatter. Starting from the corner of the eyes, it was like a ceramic plate that was destroyed inch by inch. Seeing this scene, Wei Haiji could not care less about the grief in his heart. Instead, he seemed to have thought of something and cried out in shock, "Bone-piercing breeze! Nirvana world! This is the Tao art of Qing Wei. You are Taoist Lord Qing Wei." At this moment, Wei Haiji was truly shocked. If he didn't know the old Taoist's identity before, then when he saw this move, he already had an answer in his heart. Taoist Lord Qing Wei. It was rumored that the other party had already reached the peak of the divine martial realm 300 years ago, and had completely disappeared 150 years ago. Many people guessed that the other party might have died from the exhaustion of his lifespan. But now, it seemed that Taoist Lord Qing Wei hadn't died at all. Instead, he had killed his way to the Green Rainbow sect. After receiving this news, Wei Haiji felt even more despair. The two-seal Tao artifact combined with the strength of the Green Rainbow sect, even if it was above the 7th level of the divine martial realm, even if it was an expert who had stepped into the late stage of the divine martial realm, they would still be able to deal with it. As for ordinary warriors of the divine martial realm, he could kill them directly. This was the strength of the great sects of spirit realm. However, if he wanted to deal with a peak divine martial expert, especially one as old as Taoist Lord Qing Wei, he would be unable to do so. Unless the Green Rainbow sect could control a 3-seal Tao artifact, they might still have the power to fight. It was a pity. The Green Rainbow sect did not. The old Taoist Lord Qing Wei, turned a blind eye to Wei Haiji's shock. He used the Qing Wei Taoist art to shatter the eye formed by the azure mirror. Then, he used his finger to gather a vast amount of power and unleashed it. Boom! The finger energy shattered the void and blasted toward the green bronze mirror. At this moment, the power of the peak of the divine martial force was fully displayed. Wei Haiji and the others poured their quintessential essence into the azure mirror, wanting to block Tao Lord Qing Wei's attack. However, the difference in strength between the two was simply too great. Boom! A terrifying force bombarded the azure mirror, causing it to shine brightly. Then, it dimmed and was forcefully fixed in midair by a force. As for Wei Haiji and the others, they all spat out a mouthful of blood and were severely injured. Since the Yuan Pavilion won't give you the divine technique, why do you have to destroy my Green Rainbow sect? Wei Haiji clutched his chest with one hand as he stared at Tao Lord Qing Wei. Even now, he still didn't understand why the other party had made a move. If the Yuan Pavilion didn't give him the divine technique, could it be that an expert at the peak of the divine martial force would be tempted by other things? While he was speaking, Tao Lord Qing Wei had already made his move once again, and the terrifying power completely engulfed him. However, before his divine sense completely dissipated, Wei Haiji heard a sentence. Who asked the mission to destroy the Green Rainbow sect to give the most contribution points? The contribution points given were the most. Before Wei Haiji died, he finally knew the reason why the other party had targeted the Green Rainbow sect. Even though there were tens of thousands of thoughts and regrets in his heart, they were useless at this moment. With a loud bang, Wei Haiji and the other elders of the Green Rainbow sect were completely annihilated at the hands of Tao Lord Qing Wei. Subsequently, a huge spirit god rose from Tao Lord Qing Wei's body, and then a terrifying spirit sense swept out, covering the entire Green Rainbow sect. Immediately after, the spirit god exploded. Under the terrifying impact of the spiritual will, everyone in the Green Rainbow sect, from top to bottom, lost consciousness in the blink of an eye. It was only a breath or two. There was no longer a single living being in the Green Rainbow sect. Tao Lord Qing Wei smiled and muttered to himself, "This time, the sect extermination mission should be completed." With that, his figure disappeared from where he stood. Very quickly, the news of the Green Rainbow sect's destruction spread. Although the destruction of a large sect in the spirit realm was not enough to affect the entire cultivation world, it was still enough to shake a prefecture. However, the Green Rainbow sect was just the beginning. Following Yuan Pavilion's announcement of the bounty, a total of 13 sects had been destroyed in less than 3 days. This time, the remaining 20 sects were scared out of their wits. Then, they hurriedly sent people to the Yuan sect to seek peace. Liang Mountain Spirit Domain. Yuan sect. After spending a lot of time, Qin Shujian used up all the materials in several storage rings. In the end, he refined 700,000 identity tokens and finally ended his seclusion. Just as he walked out of the forbidden area, he bumped into Su Yuanming. Sect Master. When he saw Qin Shujian, Su Yuanming was obviously stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. You came at the right time. Here are 700,000 identity tokens. If they are distributed to the various Yuan pavilions, it should be enough to alleviate the urgent situation. Qin Shujian directly handed the 5 storage rings to Su Yuanming. Hearing this, Su Yuanming immediately took the storage rings and solemnly put them away. Then, the two of them walked and chatted. Qin Shujian also needed to understand what had happened in the Yuan sect during this period of time. During this period of time, have there been any unusual movements? How are the matters of the 51 sects being handled? This matter is about to be reported to the sect master. Tell me. Yes, Su Yuanming did not hesitate and told him everything that had happened in the Yuan sect during this period of time, including the matter of the various sects imitating the Yuan Pavilion and the Yuan Pavilion's bounty. In the end, Su Yuanming lowered his head and said, "This time, I used the divine connection cultivation method as bait without permission. I hope the sect master will not blame me." What crime is there? Qin Shujian shook his head, then smiled faintly and said, "Whether it is the divine connection cultivation method or other treasures, it is most useful to be able to turn it into an advantage that is beneficial to oneself. Elder Su has handled the matter well this time. With the release of the divine connection cultivation method, those top rogue cultivators should be unable to hold back this time." Regarding this matter, Qin Shujian really did not mean to blame Su Yuanming. For the Yuan sect, the real inheritance had never been the divine connection cultivation method of the Heavenly Corpse sect, although this was the key to the celestial realm. However, that was all. In Qin Shujian's view, the real foundation of the Yuan sect was himself. If the Guiyuan ancestral canon continued to be deduced in the future, it would be able to reach the divine connection level sooner or later. As for this powerful cultivation method, he would not easily impart it, and would only choose the right person. Su Yuanming said, "In the past 3 days, 13 sects have been destroyed. I think the remaining sects should have enough fear by now. Fear will be forgotten. Pain is the permanent scar that will be left behind." Qin Shujian sneered, and his face became cold and stern. "Since they are so lucky, let them understand the consequences of not obeying the orders of our sect, and let those sects that follow our orders know how correct their decision was." Sect Master is right. The two talked as they walked, and along the way, they met many disciples of the Yuan sect. But when these disciples saw Qin Shujian, they all stopped far away to greet him, and then took a detour. As time went by, Qin Shujian's power and influence in the Yuan sect had been increasing day by day. No one dared to have the thought of disobeying him. Even those players had extinguished the last bit of hope they had for this Cold Mountain Stronghold Master. No one knew when it started. The Cold Mountain Stockade Master was already on a different level from them. He stood at a height where they needed to look up to see his back. Just as the two of them were walking forward, Su Yuanming's footsteps paused, and a communication jade tablet appeared in his hand. After his divine thought landed, a message appeared in his mind. He then put away the jade tablet and turned to look at Qin Shujian. "Sect Master, some of the remaining sects have sent people here. Do you want to meet them? Let him come to the inherited martial hall." Qin Shujian thought for a while and then nodded. Hearing this, Su Yuanming sent out the message. Then, the two of them changed direction and walked toward the inherited martial hall. Inside the inherited martial hall, Qin Shujian had just sat down on the main seat, and his but hadn't even warmed up when an outer sect deacon came in with a young man. "Sect Master, The person is here. You can leave. Yes. The outer sect deacon bowed and left. At this moment, after the young man saw Qin Shujian on the main seat, his heart suddenly jumped, and he hurriedly bowed and saluted. Shiju sect's Homing greets sect master Qin. As he spoke, he kept a bowing posture and couldn't lift his head. After he finished speaking, the scene fell into silence. Homing looked at the ground and waited for Qin Shujian's reply for a long time. Sweat faintly appeared on his forehead, and his heart beat violently. An invisible pressure had already landed on his body. After a long time, only then did Qin Shujian's calm voice resound in the great hall. You may rise. Thank you, Sect Master Qin. Homing secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then straightened up, but when he looked at Qin Shujian, his gaze moved down slightly, and he didn't dare to look at him. I don't remember having any dealings with Shiju sect. What are you doing here? Looking at Homing in front of him, Qin Shujian said indifferently. He didn't open his mouth to give him a seat, and he didn't cover up his words at all. It was almost a merciless interrogation. Regarding this, Homing's heart tightened, but he had already expected it. My sect had some misunderstanding and friction with your sect before. Now, I specifically came to apologize to Sect Master Qin, and his words paused, and he took out a storage ring from his bosom, and then he lifted it with his chi. This is a little token of my sect's appreciation. I hope Sect Master Qin will kindly accept it. There was no quibbling, and there was no excessive nonsense. Before coming here, Homing had already scouted out the general nature of Qin Shujian's character. He also knew that the other party only saw benefits, and the other etiquette was just an illusion. The other simply didn't place them in his eyes. Therefore, when he saw Qin Shujian's first words, he directly expressed Shiju sect's sincerity. Qin Shujian looked at the storage ring in front of him, held up by his chi, and didn't immediately reach out to receive it. However, Homing's straightforwardness also eased his complexion a little. How much are the things inside the storage ring worth? The sudden question made Homing stare blankly for a moment. Then, he answered truthfully, if all the resources are converted, it's probably around 40 to 50 million taels. This price was information that Shiju sect had scouted out. The value of the resources that the sects had previously apologized to Shiju sect were roughly between 20 to 40 million taels. Shiju sect considered that the current situation was relatively serious, so they paid according to the highest 40 million taels. His words fell. Qin Shujian waved his hand, and the chi wrapped around the storage ring was annihilated. Soon after, an even more powerful force acted on the storage ring. With the momentum of a sudden clap of thunder, it flew back towards Homing. The sudden unforeseen event made Homing's mind tremble. It was obviously a storage ring, but it gave him a kind of illusion of death. He didn't dare hesitate. True essence erupted, and Homing reached out with a hand, wanting to catch the storage ring. Just as the two made contact, a terrifying force erupted, and in a flash, the true essence in his palm was smashed apart. Immediately after, the storage ring bombarded his body, sending him flying straight away. Poochie, a line of blood was spat out from his mouth, streaking through the air. Homing's body fell to the ground, and it was difficult for him to stand up for a while. Qin Shujian retracted his palm, looked at him with cold eyes, and sneered, 40 million taels. That was the previous price. If Shiju sect can't take out 200 million taels of silver, this Qin will destroy your sect and kill you. Sect Master Qin. Homing was alarmed and frightened at the same time. His original calm and unruffled appearance had long since disappeared without a trace. How could he have anticipated that Qin Shujian would make a move just like that, not giving him the slightest bit of face? But at this very moment, Homing really didn't dare to give birth to any anger or resentment. The situation was stronger than the person. Not to mention him, a mere 10 Ultimate Sect Elder. Even the entire 10 Ultimate Sect wasn't enough to look at in front of Origin Sect. Now, even if Qin Shujian directly made a move to kill him, the sect behind him absolutely wouldn't dare to say a word. For a moment, Homing's heart welled up with immense fear. In this present situation, it wasn't impossible for Qin Shujian to make a move to kill him. A single moment of carelessness and he really would die. He would die. Thinking of this possibility, Ho Ming's mind trembled even more. He originally thought that there shouldn't be any problems with Ju's sect coming to apologize this time, and even attaching 40 million taels of silver as compensation. However, what happened now was beyond his expectations. Get lost. This one will definitely pass on Sect Master Qin's words. Hearing this, Ho Ming struggled to stand up from the ground as if he had been granted amnesty. Then, he staggered out of the main hall. But when he left, he didn't forget to take that storage ring with him. 40 million taels of silver. For Ju's sect, which was only a great sect of spirit domain, taking it out wasn't an easy matter. Looking at Ho Ming's departing figure, Su Yuanming's expression didn't change, but when only the two of them were left in the main hall, he tilted his head to look at the main seat. Sect Master, with the power of spirit domain's great sects, to take out 200 million taels, I'm afraid they'll have to take out all of their family's assets. They may not be willing to do so. If they're not willing, then destroy them. Why waste words with them? Qin Shujian didn't comment and casually replied. In one sentence, the killing intent was fully revealed. Previously, they didn't take the opportunity to apologize. Now, facing the situation of their sect being destroyed, they came to ask for peace. How could there be such a good thing in the world? In any case, even the Heavenly Corpse sect was destroyed, and indirectly destroyed many of Spirit Domain's great sections. Now, Qin Shujian didn't mind destroying a few more. Anyway, there was a reason, and he wasn't afraid of arousing the hostility of other sections. After all, in the end, this was still a grudge between Yuanzong and other sections. It wasn't a matter of destroying sects and killing people for no reason. Moreover, with Yuanzong's current power as a top-grade sect, and with the momentum of destroying the Heavenly Corpse sect, there weren't many sects that had nothing better to do. To put it bluntly, if anyone casually interfered and didn't handle it well, they would have to consider whether they could bear the anger of Yuanzong. Subsequently, Qin Shujian said again, in addition, send a message to other sections. If they want to ask for peace, the great sects of Spirit Domain have to take out 200 million taels, and the great sects of Spirit Domain have to take out 1 billion taels. Otherwise, they can just wait to die. Yes. Qin Shujian's words were so straightforward that even Su Yuanming was stunned. Fortunately, the two of them were originally mountain bandits and bandit leaders, and most of their actions were straightforward, so they reacted quickly. Very quickly. Qin Shujian's words directly spread. Many cultivators and sects were also stunned when they heard this, and then they immediately admired him. They had seen extortion, but they had never seen such a straightforward and rampant extortion. If other sects did this, they would only make others laugh. However, no one had any funny thoughts about Yuanzong's actions. This was because Yuanzong's strength was too strong, so strong that others thought it was normal for them to do this. At most, when they heard this news, they would be a little stunned. After the news spread, there were already people who wanted to see how those sects would deal with it. With the price that Yuanzong offered, basically, it was stuck on the lifeline of these sections. If they wanted to take out enough compensation, it would be light to say that it was to the extent of breaking their bones, or even to the extent of emptying their assets. Once they really did this, the overall strength of the sects would at least regress by a few decades. However, if they didn't take it, with the current development of the situation, it would be difficult for these sects to be spared. The temptation of the divine connection cultivation method was too great, so great that it was beyond the expectations of all the sections. Only after Yuanzong took out the name of the divine connection cultivation method did they know how many peak powerhouses were hidden among the loose cultivators. In the end, how many loose cultivator powerhouses were once famous throughout the world? As it turned out, they were all hidden in some corner. The so-called rumors of their lifespans being exhausted and passing away were all nothing more than rumors. 10 Ultimate Sect. When Ho Ming dragged his heavily injured body back, the entire sect was immediately shaken. You're going too far. Yuanzong's way of doing things is really too savage. Inside 10 Ultimate Sect, many elders had angry expressions. They had the idea of going over and having a showdown with Yuanzong. As for Ho Ming, he sat on the side in silence. Right now, his injuries weren't light, and he had to rush back to Tin Ultimate's sect without stopping. It wasn't good for him either. Qin Shujian's seemingly casual attack was enough to make ordinary spirit martial realm cultivators lose their lives. Homing could perceive that the other party had restrained some of his strength in the end. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to walk out of the inherited martial hall. He spared my life just to let me bring back a message? Homing smiled wryly in his heart. For the first time in so many years, he felt how weak he was in front of a powerhouse of that level. As for the sect master of Tin Ultimate Sect, he sat motionless on the main seat at this time, allowing the group of elders below to be agitated. When the others were almost done speaking, he calmly opened his mouth and said, "Since the elders are so indignant, it would be better for my sect to declare war on Yuanzhong and let you vent this anger." With one sentence, the entire Great Hall fell silent. The elders who were clamoring all flushed red. They wanted to follow up, but they didn't know how to. To put it bluntly, they were only indulging in their mouths. If they really wanted to go to war with Yuanzhong, it was no different from courting death. Aren't the elders very angry? Bayan was expressionless and said neither salty nor indifferently, "Why haven't you killed Yuanzhong and redeemed the face of my Tin Ultimate Sect?" No one answered because they didn't know what to say. Seeing this, Bayan shook his head again, and then looked at Homing on the side. "Elder Ho is currently unwell. It's better to go back and have a good rest. If you need any spirit medicine, just ask. As long as the sect can take it out, we won't be stingy." "Thank you for your concern, Sect Master. I'll go back and recuperate for a few days." "That's good. Elder Ho doesn't need to participate in this matter for the time being. Go back and rest." "Thank you, Sect Master." Homing didn't insist on anything. He was indeed holding on now. Therefore, after hearing Bayan's words, he cupped his hands and got up to leave. After Homing left, Bayan looked at the other elders who didn't look too good and said, "Yuanzhong offered 200 million taels. What do you think my sect should do?" "Everything will be decided by the sect master. As far as this lord knows, each elder has a lot of property under their hands. Now that the sect is in a crisis, you should share the burden of the sect." When Homing spoke, he paused for a moment and continued, 200 million taels of silver. The sect will take out 100 million. The remaining 100 million will be shared by you." Hearing this, the elders of Tin Ultimate's sect were all stunned. Obviously, Bayan's words were completely beyond their expectations. No one thought that the other party would do such a thing. Chapter 447. Inside Shurju's sect. Many of the elders were dumbfounded. Bayan said faintly, "What? Could it be that the elders don't want to share the sect's burden?" "We're willing to share the sect's burden, but we really can't take out 100 million taels of silver." "Can't take it out?" Bayan suddenly sneered and said sarcastically, "In the past, you were the ones who resolutely opposed Yuanzhong and refused to lower your heads. Are you still planning to stay out of this situation today?" Speaking of this, he suddenly became furious and shouted sternly, "I'm telling you, if you can't take out 100 million taels of silver today, then you and Shurju's sect will perish together. Whoever dares to run away, I'll be the first to behead him." His words fell. A terrifying power erupted and pervaded the main hall. A clear and melodious sound of a sword rang in people's hearts. A long sword was already suspended beside Bayan at some unknown time. The two seals engraved on the sword were telling others. This wasn't an ordinary long sword, but a two-seal Dao tool. As for the others in Shurju's sect, how could they not recognize the long sword's identity? Seeing that Bayan even took out the sect's Dao tool, these elders suddenly felt an endless chill in their hearts. They were aware of the seriousness of the situation when they met the sect master's cold and emotionless eyes. The other party's words. He wasn't joking. If someone dared to say no, they were afraid that the sect's Dao tool would have already been cut down. For a moment, there was a touch of fear in the eyes of Shurju's sect's elders. "Sect Master, please calm down. Sect Master, calm down." They were really scared now. They were afraid that Bayan would go crazy under the pressure of Yuanzhong. "Calm down. If it weren't for you all trying to stop me, how could my Shurju sect fall into this situation today? If it weren't for you all trying to stop me, how could my sect's disciples suffer heavy losses under the Yuan Pavilion's bounty? If it weren't for you all, how could my sect lose 160 million taels of silver for nothing? Bayan's eyes were terrifyingly cold as he glanced at everyone, angrily questioning them. If it weren't for the fact that you all have worked for the sect, I would have killed all of you now. Don't think that I don't know anything about the little tricks you all have done behind the scenes. Using the reputation of the sect to secretly take over the industries of other forces, they did it very quickly. What's wrong? Are you all reluctant to part with the money in your pockets? Let me tell you, you have to take it today whether you want to or not. Otherwise, you can try and see if you can walk out of this hall. He no longer had any intention of calmly discussing this matter. The current situation, there was no need for further discussion. Over the years, these elders before him had turned the entire sect upside down, constantly weakening the authority of the sect master. However, for the sake of the sect's stability, Bayan didn't really make a move. Instead, he accompanied the elders. But now, under Origin Sect's coercion, 10 Ultimate Sect already reached the point where they could not retreat. Bayan did not intend to endure any longer. This opportunity before their eyes was precisely the chance to reorganize 10 Ultimate Sect. Indecisiveness will only lead to chaos. When he took out the sect protecting Dao artifact, he had already made a decision in his heart. In terms of strength, Bayan was 10 Ultimate Sect's #1 person. The other party also had a sect guarding Dao artifact in hand. No one in 10 Ultimate Sect could stop them. Therefore, under such circumstances, the elders of 10 Ultimate Sect finally yielded. Unless they really wanted to fight to the death with Bayan, they could only yield. But the problem was, they didn't dare to risk their lives against Bayan, but Bayan really dared to risk his life against them. In this situation, there was simply no room for choice. Soon, 10 Ultimate Sect gathered 200 million taels of silver, and then Bayan personally brought it to the Liang Mountain spiritual region. Origin Sect, inside the Inheritance Martial Hall. 10 Ultimate Sect's Bayan greets Sect Master Qin. At this time, Bayan no longer had the imposing manner of the Sect Master of 10 Ultimate Sect. He was just like an ordinary cultivator, standing in front of Qin Shujian and cupping his hands with a solemn expression. Qin Shujian said, "Sect Master Bayan, may I know the reason for your visit this time? In accordance with Sect Master Qin's previous request, I have now sent an apology gift." Bayan took a storage ring from his finger, and then lifted it in front of Qin Shujian with his true essence. There are 200 million taels of silver inside. I have already converted them all into cash. Sect Master Qin can count them. No need. This Qin still trusts the credibility of 10 Ultimate Sect. Qin Shujian glanced at the storage ring in front of him and put it away. Then, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "Sect Master Bayan, please take a seat." "Many thanks." Bayan didn't decline. After saying a word of thanks, he sat down on a seat to the side. Facing this Sect Master of Origin Sect, to be honest, he also suffered a lot of pressure. However, as the Sect Master of 10 Ultimate Sect, his psychological quality wasn't weak at all. Even though he was very afraid of Qin Shujian, he didn't show it on the surface. After he sat down, Bayan cupped his hands and said again, "Previously, it wasn't 10 Ultimate Sect's intention to be enemies with your noble sect. Therefore, this 200 million taels of silver is my sect's apology gift. I hope Sect Master Qin can disregard the former enmity. Rest assured, this Qin has always paid attention to credibility when doing things." Qin Shujian said with a faint smile, "Since 10 Ultimate Sect is so straightforward, my sect master won't be willing to set up another enemy. It's just that, this time, 10 Ultimate Sect can use silver to reconcile. However, if there's a next time, the matter can't be solved with a mere 200 million taels of silver. I hope Sect Master Bayan can understand this point." Bayan made an attitude of listening with respectful attention to Qin Shujian's words. After the other party finished speaking, he nodded and replied, "Rest assured, Sect Master Qin, as long as I'm still in power, 10 Ultimate Sect will never be enemies with Sect Master Qin." That's for the best. Qin Shujian was in a good mood because Bayan was so understanding. After all, he didn't want to work hard every day and hurt his spirit. If everyone was as understanding as Bayan, then many things would become simple. However, such thoughts were always extravagant hopes. If Tin Ultimate Sect hadn't been destroyed, Bayan wouldn't have been so easy to talk to. In the end, it's the fists that are hard enough that words are useful. A woman's benevolence will harm others and herself in the end. After Tin Ultimate Sect, the other sects also sent silver tails over one after another. Sect Master Qin threw out the Divine Connection cultivation method, instantly gathering a large number of loose cultivator powerhouses. In the face of so many top cultivators, even the great sects of large territories were under great pressure. Although taking out 1 billion taels of silver was a serious injury, compared to the destruction of the sect, 1 billion taels of silver was over with gritted teeth. For a time, after receiving the silver taels from the various sects, Sect Master Qin's foundation improved a lot. After all, the compensation from so many sects added together wasn't a small sum. After a period of time, Qin Shujian still lived in seclusion in Sect Master Qin, silently cultivating the origin-returning ancestral canon, as well as those divine connection martial arts. The divine rank origin-returning ancestral canon pointed to the great circle of the divine martial realm. He was now only at the 2nd level of the divine martial realm, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. At the present stage, every time he advanced a cultivation method, the consumption of life source was calculated in the hundreds of millions. Therefore, Qin Shujian would rather spend some time cultivating. If he could break through the original threshold, he could save a lot of life source. However, breaking through the origin-returning ancestral canon wasn't just difficult. As for the 3 divine realm martial arts that he had learned, he was also very interested in them, especially that 9 tribulations immortal body. Now Qin Shujian had just gone through the lightning tribulation and stepped into the 1st level. To step into the 2nd level, he needed to encounter the wind tribulation. The so-called 9 tribulations meant that at every level, one had to experience a tribulation. Only after passing it could one step into the next threshold. If one couldn't pass it, even if they didn't die, they would be seriously injured. Among the 9 tribulations immortal body, the lightning tribulation was considered the lowest level. Therefore, passing the lightning tribulation was only the beginning of this martial art. However, what really piqued Qin Shujian's interest in this martial art was that it was completely different from what he had expected. It would clash with the immortal body of the ancients. Not only did the two not conflict, but they even had a kind of intention of complementing each other. If the ancient immortal body was to unlock the hidden potential of the human body, causing the cultivator's physical body to transform, then the 9 tribulations immortal body could speed up the process of unlocking the hidden potential of the human body. In the process of accelerating, it could further refine the cultivator's physical body and vital energy, causing it to reach an even more powerful level. After stepping into the 9 tribulations immortal body, Qin Shujian's Gang Qi also changed. The light purple Gang Qi surged, like streaks of lightning flashing within, and a destructive aura spread out. Thunderblast. Feeling the power of the Gang Qi, Qin Shujian murmured. Even though it wasn't the first time he saw Thunderblast, every time he felt this power, he felt a kind of shock in his heart. Breaking through the 1st level already had such an effect. Qin Shujian really wanted to know what kind of level he could reach if he cultivated this martial art to the end. However, divine connection martial arts were extraordinary. Even with Qin Shujian's current vision and talent, after a period of hard work, he didn't make much progress. Soon, more than a month passed. It wasn't until Wu Lang's arrival that he finally ended his seclusion. As for the Imperial Court's envoy, Qin Shujian had always been very attentive. Although Baiyun Prefecture was peaceful now, the demon disaster was still raging in other prefectures. In some prefectures, it was even showing signs of getting worse. The reason was that the altars that sealed the demons were destroyed one after another. Even though the Imperial Court had been strictly guarding them, the players were everywhere. As a result, several months passed. More and more demons broke out of the seal and came out. Qin Shujian also saw these demons breaking out of the seal, and his heart was filled with desire. These demons that were like the grim reaper in the eyes of others were walking luck points in his eyes. However, Wu Lang didn't take any action after reporting to the imperial court, so Qin Shujian could only temporarily suppress the impulse in his heart. Now that the other party came again, there was no need to think about the reason. As for the imperial court's envoy, no matter what his identity was, he represented the imperial court's face. As for this, Qin Shujian also had to give him some face. Therefore, when he received the news, he immediately went to the Martial Heritage Hall to meet Wu Lang. Envoy, long time no see. How have you been? Everything is fine. But Sect Master Qin's actions during this period of time have opened my eyes. Wu Lang smiled and cupped his hands. His tone was full of admiration. Baiyun Prefecture's cultivation world is really blessed to have Sky Origin Sect. He didn't exaggerate the last sentence. Although the Great Zhao cultivation world was a whole, the Great Zhao divided the 13 prefectures, so the cultivation world was also divided, resulting in different resources. In this way, the cultivation world of each prefecture would have fights and robberies with each other. At this time, the strength of the cultivation world in each prefecture played a huge role in determining the strength of the cultivation world. The weaker prefectures occupied more resources, so the prefectures that didn't have enough resources naturally turned their attention to these prefectures. As for the cultivation world, the imperial court generally didn't care. As long as it didn't rebel or threaten the foundation of the Great Zhao, the imperial court would turn a blind eye to the fighting between cultivators. In this way, the strength of each prefecture's cultivation world was very important, just like Baiyun Prefecture. Among the 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao, Baiyun Prefecture's foundation was relatively shallow. After all, as a prefecture that was close to the limit of heaven and earth, it already meant that its foundation was weaker than the other prefectures. So the cultivation world's strength wasn't very strong. For a long time, Baiyun Prefecture's cultivation world didn't have a top sect to oversee it. Only a few large sects from large regions joined forces to contend with the cultivation world of other prefectures. Although they could maintain the situation, it was still difficult. But it was different now. Sky Origin Sect was added to Baiyun Prefecture. Previously, Sky Origin Sect was only in name, but now, his successive achievements and methods were enough to establish his supreme position. In this case, even if Sky Origin Sect wasn't officially the leader of Baiyun Prefecture, if the sects and forces of other prefectures wanted to interfere, they would have to consider the intentions of this top sect. Therefore, although it wasn't entirely a good thing that Sky Origin Sect was added to Baiyun Prefecture, it at least gave the prefecture some protection and deterrence. Especially during this period of time, Sky Origin Sect had first established the Yuan Pavilion, then destroyed the Heavenly Corpse Sect and other sections. Wu Lang had also received the news, so he was no less shocked than the others. In fact, some people had mentioned the Yuan Pavilion in the imperial court. However, the civil and military officials had their own opinions, so the imperial court had left this matter unsettled. More importantly, now, they couldn't do without Sky Origin Sect's help to deal with the demons of the other prefectures. If the demons had broken the seal in the spirit domain, it would have been fine. The imperial court didn't lack heavenly man experts, so it wouldn't be a big problem to deal with them. However, in the true dominion, everyone's strength was suppressed. The demons' physical strength was extremely strong, so the human race couldn't compare to them at all. Comparing the two, the gap and advantage between them were obvious. This was also the reason why the imperial court hadn't dealt with the demons for such a long time. The biggest reason was that it was too difficult to find an expert who could contend with the demons in the true dominion. Therefore, Qin Shujian, who had condensed 4 universal heavenly locks and broken through, was very important. You flatter me. May I know why you're here this time? I've already reported to the imperial court about what I discussed with Sect Master Qin. Now that I've received accurate information, I've come again. What does the imperial court mean? The imperial court understands that Sky Origin Sect has just been established, so its foundation is slightly lacking. It should be in need of spirit stones. Therefore, Sect Master Qin's reward for killing the demons will be in spirit stones. Are you satisfied? Wu Lang cupped his hands and said from his seat, "Spirit stones." Upon hearing this, Qin Shujian's expression changed. The imperial court wasn't wrong. After the Sky Origin sect had annexed the Heavenly Corpse sect, it didn't lack many things for the time being. Instead, it needed spirit stones to improve its foundation. There were already many spirit stones on Liang Mountain. However, one would never complain about having too many spirit stones. With each additional spirit stone, the spirit chi would become denser, which would be of great benefit to the future. After all, many little drops made a mickle. After a few decades or a century, this would be a considerable gain. A few decades or a century might sound very far away. However, in reality, after breaking through to the divine martial realm, Qin Shujian realized that it was actually possible for him to endure for a few decades or a century. However, spirit stones were just spirit stones. The main issue was how much he had. How will the spirit stones be settled? 5 demons for 1 spirit stone. What do you think, Sect Master Qin? It's a deal. Qin Shujian nodded his head and replied without hesitation. 5 demons for 1 spirit stone. This was no different from giving him money. According to his estimation, there were at least 2,000 to 3,000 demons in the True Dominion within the Great Zhao Nation. Upon thinking about the 2,000 to 3,000 demons and the fact that he could exchange 5 demons for 1 spirit stone, Qin Shujian felt a little excited. If this deal went through, the Origin sect would really make a fortune. Although it was impossible to leave all the demons for him to kill, it was not a small number. However, even if he only killed 500 evil spirits, he would still get 100 spirit stones. If 100 spirit stones were thrown into the Origin sect, the density of the spirit chi there would definitely reach a frightening level. When the time came, if a pig was thrown into this place for a period of time, it might even have a chance of developing spirit intelligence. On the other side, when Wu Lang had first mentioned this matter, he had felt somewhat apprehensive. After all, even though spirit stones were precious, it depended on the situation. The power of the demons was extraordinary. Their strength was comparable to a heavenly man major cultivator. No matter which region one was in, this level of existence was not something that ordinary people could contend against. To be honest, exchanging 5 demons for 1 spirit stone, this price was on the low side. The imperial court had even deliberately lowered the price because of the difficulty of killing the demons for Qin Shujian. Wu Lang had originally been prepared to bargain with the other party. However, he had not expected that the other party would agree immediately. Upon seeing this, he immediately replied, "Sect Master Qin is a straightforward person. This matter is settled then." Now that the matter had been settled, Wu Lang was not afraid that the other party would go back on his word. After all, the imperial court and Qin Shujian had worked together before, so they had some understanding of the other party's credibility. After the matter was settled, Wu Lang heaved a sigh of relief. Qin Shujian also smiled faintly. In Wu Lang's opinion, exchanging 5 demons for 1 spirit stone was a little underhanded by the imperial court. However, in Qin Shujian's opinion, exchanging 5 demons for 1 spirit stone was no different from picking up money from the ground. Subsequently, after the matter was settled, Wu Lang left behind a jade stone and an identity card. The jade stone recorded information about the current fiend calamity in the various prefectures and the location where the demons of the True Dominion were sealed. As for the identity token, it was to allow Qin Shujian to freely enter and exit the place where the demons were being suppressed without any obstructions. It could be said that this identity card was similar to the one given by Marquis Baiyun in the past. However, in terms of importance, the identity card given by the imperial court was naturally more important. After all, Marquis Baiyun was only in charge of the Baiyun prefecture. The imperial court was in charge of the entire world. After sending someone to send Wu Lang away, Qin Shujian picked up the jade stone and enveloped it with his spiritual force. Perhaps he would obtain the information he wanted. Boom! A huge amount of information surged over like a tide. However, his spiritual spirit was extremely powerful now, so it was not affected by the information at all. Instead, it disintegrated rapidly as the information surged over. Soon, the jade stone in his hand turned into powder. In Qin Shujian's mind, he had also obtained what he wanted. There doesn't seem to be many demons in the Great Zhao dynasty. After obtaining the information, he discovered that the demons sealed in the other prefectures were somewhat different from what he had expected. In the past, there had been more than 170 true dominions sealed in the Baiyun prefecture. Based on this, the number of demons in the Great Zhao 13 prefectures was estimated to be at least 2,000 to 3,000. However, in reality, this number was much lower than what he had expected. In the Great Zhao 13 prefectures, apart from the Baiyun prefecture, there were only about 1,500 demons sealed in the other 12 prefectures. This number was equivalent to 3 of the North Cloud Mansion's demons combined. After thinking about it, Qin Shujian understood why there were so few demons in the other prefectures of the Great Zhao dynasty. It was different from the Baiyun prefecture. Most of the other prefectures had existed for a long time. If there were really demons born, many of them would have broken the seal and escaped or been killed by the Great Zhao dynasty. On the other hand, the Baiyun prefecture was located at the limit of heaven and earth. Recently, new areas had been born. That was why there were so many demons. Most of the other prefectures did not have this problem. Naturally, there were not many demons sealed in them. However, although there were more than 1,000 demons, this number seemed to be much smaller compared to the Baiyun prefecture. One had to know, more than 1,000 demons were equivalent to more than 1,000 heavenly beings. It would be a problem if there were even 100 heavenly beings in the entire Great Zhao dynasty. Apart from that, this number of demons did not include the Spirit Protectorate, the Great Protectorate, and the various ordinary protectorates. Based on this calculation, the number of demons was not small at all. However, the Great Zhao dynasty has only existed for about 6,000 years. It is impossible for the entire world to be born in just a few thousand years. Therefore, the demons that were born in the new areas before the Great Zhao dynasty must have been suppressed by someone else. However, I don't know if it was the human clan or the demon clan. Qin Shujian pondered silently. One had to know that before the human emperor had established the Great Zhao dynasty, the demon clan had not been driven to the endless mountain range. At that time, the demon clan and the human clan had coexisted in this world. Chapter 448. After obtaining the information that he wanted, Qin Shujian made some simple arrangements in the sect and planned to head to the other prefectures immediately. To him, every single evil spirit was worth luck points. Although the evil spirits were wreaking havoc and seemed very powerful, there were many experts in the Great Zhao dynasty. However, there were many strong practitioners in the Great Zhao. There were bound to be powerful people as well. After all, the Marquis of Northern Cloud was a powerful person. The imperial court could not possibly only have 1 or 2 powerful people. If experts of this level were to attack, the evil spirits that had broken out of their seals would not be a match for them. Furthermore, although very few players had reached the spirit martial realm, many of them were at the true martial realm. If so many players swarmed together in the true dominion, even the evil spirits would be doomed. From Qin Shujian's point of view, after obtaining the imperial court's identity card, all these evil spirits belonged to him. A bunch of people were coveting what belonged to him. To this, Qin Shujian was very anxious. The demon calamity. Sky-covering skeletons were spreading in all directions. The fiendish qi accompanied the skeletons as they advanced, constantly eroding the ground beneath their feet. Everywhere they passed, living beings were exterminated and turned into a demonic land. However, the place where these skeletons were advancing was an even bigger encirclement. It was an encirclement formed by players to prevent the demon calamity from spreading. Swoosh! A sword slashed out at lightning speed, causing a black-armored skeleton to retreat continuously. Zhong Gaojia did not show any mercy. He took a step forward and attacked like a storm. When the sword flashes exploded, a cold glint could be seen. Every sword slashed out with an extremely fast and ferocious force before accurately landing on the same position of the black-armored skeleton in front of him. After dozens of sword slashes, the power that had gathered suddenly exploded. The sword flashes swept past like a crescent moon before the black-armored skeleton's head was chopped off. When the head fell off, the entire skeleton fell apart instantly. However, the head that fell on the ground did not turn into ashes. Instead, it rolled on the ground, as if it wanted to kill the enemy. F***ck. It's still not dead. Zhong Gaojia was speechless. Then, he slashed out with all his strength, barely piercing the black armor that protected the head and extinguishing the soul fire inside. After that, only this skeleton could be considered truly dead. He glanced at his experience bar and saw that the cultivation method bar had only jumped a little. Regarding this, Zhong Gaojia shook his head in resignation. These demonic disasters gave the least amount of EXP, but they were ridiculously strong. If he had not accepted the Imperial Court's quest, he would not have been willing to raid these monsters. However, now that players' levels were getting higher, the amount of EXP they needed was also increasing. Aside from the demon beasts in the Endless Mountain range, there weren't many places for players to grind and level up. The main reason was because the monsters in other places gave pitiful amounts of experience. However, if one were to compare them seriously, even though the demonic calamity gave less EXP, it was only when compared to demonic beasts of the same level. However, there were so many of them. If they weren't too hard to kill, it would be a good place to train. After killing a devil calamity skeleton, Zhong Gaojia panted slightly, then looked at other positions. The number of demonic disasters was huge, but the number of players was even greater. In terms of average strength, the players were not any weaker than the demon disaster. Therefore, when the two sides fought, the players actually had a lot of advantages. After all, the biggest advantage of the demonic calamity was that it could turn any corpse into its own kind. However, the players didn't have any corpses, so naturally, they couldn't be turned into the demonic calamity. As a result, the biggest advantage of the demonic calamity was gone. Using the profound insight, Zhong Gaojia kept looking for suitable targets. Finally, he locked his eyes on a weaker demonic calamity skeleton and directly attacked it. The profound insight was very useless in the early stages, but it was very useful now. Many players regretted it, because the profound insight could only be learned in the novice village. Once they left the novice village, they would not have the opportunity to learn it. Now that players left the novice village, there was almost no novice village in the world. As a result, the profound insight had become an exclusive ability for some people. At first, this ability could not detect much information, but as it was used more and more, some players could deduce the profound insight, and the usefulness of this ability gradually increased. For some people, having the profound insight could save them a lot of detours. Even when fighting monsters, they could live a little longer than others. Because not all powerful monsters would have a ferocious appearance and a terrifying aura. Some were very well hidden. If one didn't use the profound insight to look, they would fall down in minutes. At this time, Chao Hong also joined forces with Lu Qinghong and the others. They formed a small group and constantly killed the demonic calamity skeletons around them. The strength of the demonic calamity mainly lay in the bone armor. The bone armor was hard, and it was difficult for a normal grade weapon to damage it. At least, it required a weapon of 4th grade or above to cause a little damage. However, Chao Hong and the others could be considered to have the support of the Imperial Court and had accumulated a lot of merit points. In addition, they weren't ordinary people in the real world, and now players could also come into contact with spiritual weapons. Therefore, after paying a relatively large price, Li Qie was able to make a decision. They didn't have a spiritual weapon, but for people like Chao Hong and the others, it wasn't a problem to have a spiritual weapon. Although the skeleton's bone armor was powerful, it couldn't withstand the sharpness of a spiritual weapon. The long sword pierced through the skeleton's facial bone armor and extinguished the soul fire inside. After losing the soul fire, the entire skeleton instantly fell apart and completely lost its function. How are the people in the other places now? Chao Hong asked as he killed the demonic calamity skeletons. Hearing this, the others also knew what Chao Hong was talking about. One of the players shook his head and said, "There's no news yet, but they should be similar to us. Try to contact them and see if they have any thoughts of rushing in." As Chao Hong spoke, a black light flashed in front of him. He didn't hesitate to take a step forward and immediately slashed out with his long sword, colliding with the black light. Bang! The two collided. The moment the black light broke, a bone blade fell to the ground. Immediately after, in the distance, a skeleton with only half a bone blade was standing in the distance. In the next second, another attack came. It was also at this time. A huge skeleton bird swooped down from the sky, immediately putting a lot of pressure on the entire team. The demonic calamity was very strong, and there were many of them. Although the players weren't weaker than the demonic calamity in all aspects, and were even better than it, perhaps that was based on the overall situation. Seriously speaking, this was the first time he had seen such a thing. In the face of such a demonic calamity, there were still many players who went back to revive. Every time they died, they would lose a level. In the past, it would take a few days to train back, but now it might take a month or two, or even more. So, not dying if possible, this was the first standard for players. For Chaohong, there were so many skeletons. If they were to encircle and suppress them for a long time, although they could still kill them, it would take too much time. Moreover, once too many players participated, for them, it would also be a loss of benefits. In his opinion, compared to the demonic calamity skeletons outside, the real demons that caused the demonic calamity were the main show. In order to reward the demons, the Imperial Court had also given out generous rewards. This reward, even if they could only revive once or twice, it would definitely not be a loss. So, many people had their eyes on the demons. But, in order to encircle and suppress the demons, they had to break through the blockade of the demonic calamity skeletons. Otherwise, if the two attacked from the front and back, they would only have a dead end. In this way, someone had to join forces and turn into a sharp knife to break in and exterminate the demons. This was because the demonic calamity skeletons only chased after the smell of the flesh and blood of living beings. The large number of players fighting outside was the target of these things. If a small group of players broke in, they would not attract too much firepower. This also meant that the people who did this had to be elites. Upon hearing this, Lu Qingheng nodded and said, "However, given our current strength, it is not that easy to deal with the demons. It is rumored that these true Dominion demons are comparable to experts who have condensed the universal skylock." So what? The demons' biggest advantage, other than their strength, is their ability to transform the demonic calamity. Chaohong shook his head and said, "We can revive. The demon's ability to transform the demonic calamity is already useless. What's left is the problem of strength. Although the ones who have condensed the universal skylock should be very strong, our strength is not weak either. Plus, isn't defeating a powerful boss our player's strength?" Quite a few people agreed with this statement. How could a monster that was not stronger than the players be called a boss? It was inevitable that the players would be able to defeat a boss. Players who had not defeated a boss would not have a complete gaming life. The boss in this game was very different from the boss in previous games. They could not be defeated as they wished. However, the game had been open for a long time. Apart from some powerful bosses, such as the Liang Mountain Fort Master, who were still standing strong, many powerful bosses had been defeated. Even the true Martial Realm Airborne Realm and the prominent Sage Realm had been defeated. However, they had to pay a huge price to do so. When Lu Qingheng saw this, he did not say anything. Then, he took out his communication jade talisman and sent the message out. Most of the players who had accepted the mission this time had been randomly selected. However, some powerful player groups like theirs had left some connections with each other so that they could be used to communicate at such times. They had the idea of defeating the demons, and so did the other groups. However, everyone knew that a group of dozens of players would not be able to defeat the demons. It would take at least a few hundred players to defeat the demons, which were rumored to be as strong as the heavenly lock of the universe. As for how strong the heavenly lock of the universe was, the details could be found by referring to the Liang Mountain Fort Master. On the other side, more than 20 players formed a group and kept hunting the demon disaster skeletons. Every player could release physical invulnerability, which showed that they were at least in the physical invulnerability realm. Furthermore, They could control their swords with their divine thoughts to kill their enemies in the air. To be able to do this, one had to at least break through to the spiritual god realm. Chao Hong has sent a message. A player released a burst of energy and forced a demon disaster skeleton to retreat. Then, he took out the communication jade talisman at his waist and read the message inside. Hearing this, the leader of the group, a young player, happened to be controlling his sword with his divine thoughts. His sword pierced through the air and pierced through a fallen bone demon. Then, he released a burst of energy and killed the fallen bone demon of true martial realm level 4 in one hit. After doing all this, the long sword rolled back and was caught in his hand. Then, he turned his head and looked at that person. What did Chao Hong say? He wants to join forces with us to kill that evil demon. As expected, the young man shook his head and laughed. That player said, Chao Hong's group is quite strong. Big brother, do you want to join them? Going together is not a problem. The important thing is how to split the benefits. Chao Hong won't just come to our side. When the time comes, there will only be one evil demon. There will be more than one team. When the young man spoke, he paused for a moment and then continued, Let's find a chance to meet up with them and then discuss this matter in detail. Okay. Then, the young man looked at the boundless demon disaster in front of him and felt a little afraid. Fortunately, this was just a game. After players died, there would be no corpses left. If these things appeared in the real world, the entire world would probably be destroyed. In the past, he might not have thought so much. But now, many things in the real world were slowly approaching this world. He couldn't help but worry. The end of the age of Dharma. The recovery of spiritual energy. However, the young man only thought about it for a moment and then threw this thought away. It wasn't his turn to think too much now. Although he was an expert in the spiritual god realm in the game, in reality, he was only a cultivator who had barely stepped into the inner energy realm. Even if the realm in the game could affect the real world, it didn't mean that one would immediately have the same strength as in the game. In the game, one could level up by killing monsters or taking pills directly. But in reality, there was no experience bar. In addition, spiritual energy had just recovered, so having spiritual herbs was almost the same as not having them. Therefore, taking pills had basically become an extravagant hope. Even if there were some pills, they weren't very useful for those in the true martial realm. So until now, there hadn't been any powerful experts in the real world. At the same time when the young man received the message, just as he said, the other players who were fighting against the demonic calamity received the same news. They have agreed. Lu Qingheng looked at the communication jade token and then looked at Chao Hong. What do you mean? As Chao Hong spoke, he didn't stop attacking. A murderous aura rose from his body, and there was a hint of killing intent in the biting cold sword light. He had exchanged for this sword technique at the government office where he was working. It was a sword technique that focused on killing enemies and stopping killing with killing. In terms of power, it was at the top of the true rank martial arts techniques. Coupled with his strength at the peak of the true martial realm, killing ordinary demon disaster skeletons wasn't a problem at all. No problem. It's just that there's only one of us now. If we want to kill it, we need to split the benefits with them in advance. Give us a meeting point. We can only negotiate when we meet. Okay. Lu Qingheng immediately picked up the communication jade token and sent the message. It didn't take long for a reply to arrive. After a simple communication, Chao Hong immediately shouted, "Everyone, follow me in." As soon as he finished speaking, a shocking sword chi erupted and instantly extinguished the soul flames of the two true martial realm demon disaster skeletons. Boom! With Chao Hong leading the way, Lu Qingheng's strength wasn't weak at all. When he blasted out his palm energy, a silver needle made of fine iron shot out and instantly pierced the soul flames of the demon disaster skeletons. In order to deal with these devil calamities, one's physical strength was ultimately weaker. If he used weapons, it would be much easier. In the vast battlefield of demon disaster skeletons and players, a team of more than 20 players slowly went deeper and deeper, forcibly opening a path. Seeing this, immediately, some players wanted to follow in. Everyone knew that these people were going in at this time to attack the boss. The Imperial Court had issued missions to eliminate demon disasters, And naturally, there were missions to kill demons, especially the latter. The bountiful rewards of the missions were enough to tempt people. Kill them. Lu Qinghong saw the players following in the back. As the number of players increased, more and more demon disaster skeletons surrounded them. His face instantly turned cold. The only reason these players followed him was to get a share of the loot. But it was fine if they just wanted a share of the loot. It just so happened that solo players were the easiest to spoil. Perhaps, if these people were to get involved in this matter of exterminating the evil devil, then perhaps it would fail. So, when he saw that someone was following him, he immediately took out several silver needles from his bosom and threw them out at an extremely fast speed. Under the illumination of the sun, the 5 silver needles were almost blinded to the point where it was hard to see them clearly. A few players who were caught off guard screamed. Some had their eyes pierced, and some had their heads pierced. Some had their throats pierced, and they all dissipated into white light. At the same time that Lu Qinghong made his move, the other players also made their moves, forcing back and killing the players following behind them. Even though they were all players, there were differences between the two. On one side was an elite team of players who were at least true martial realm level 7, while on the other side were solo players who had barely entered the true martial realm and perhaps not even reached the physical invulnerability realm. Comparing the two, the gap between the two was huge. As for what Chao Hong and the others did, it also infuriated many players. But they could only be angry. There was no other way. If the demon disaster hadn't interfered, it would have been fine. Now that the demon disaster had interfered and they had to deal with players stronger than them, these solo players immediately fell into a disadvantage. Then, under the demon disaster's obstruction, the two sides completely separated. With Chao Hong as the spearhead, he directly pierced into the demon disaster and headed in one direction according to the results of the message. 2 hours later, in a dilapidated village, several teams of players gathered here. This village used to be full of people. Now, with the outbreak of the demon disaster, the people inside were either taken away in advance or devoured by the demon disaster. In short, there was no sign of life here. Only the arrival of players made this place a little livelier. After Chao Hong and the others arrived, it didn't take long for the other teams to basically all arrive. Then, the leaders of several teams met directly. Let's cut to the chase. There's only one demon that broke out of the seal here. The Imperial Court's mission rewards also stipulated that only one demon will be rewarded. So when the time comes, everyone will rely on their own abilities. After meeting everyone, Chao Hong went straight to the point and said in a deep voice, "But whichever team completes the mission will have to give 70% of the profits to the other teams." There were a total of 5 teams here. The team that killed the demon would get 30% of the profits. The other teams would divide the remaining 70%. On average, each team would get about 20%, which wasn't a small amount. The main problem was, no team alone had the strength to kill the demon. There was only hope if the 5 teams worked together. Hearing that, the others didn't have any objections. Sure, but there's one more condition. If anyone dares to hinder or stab us in the back before we kill the evil spirit, everyone has to eliminate the hidden danger. Even if they're from the same team, we can't be lenient. Okay, no problem. The others, including Chao Hong and Lu Qinghong, didn't have any objections. This was the right thing to do. Before killing the evil spirit, if there were people who would drag them down or stab them in the back, then this cooperation would be over. If things went wrong, all the teams would die in the hands of the demon disaster or the demon. Those who could enter this place were all at least of the physical invulnerability realm. If they died and dropped a level, it would take at least a month for them to have a chance to cultivate again. This loss wasn't something that anyone could bear. After a simple discussion, the few teams, they directly left the place, pierced through the demon disaster that was besieging them, and charged toward the location of the demon according to the intelligence. Although the demon had broken out of the seal, most of them would just stay in the fortress to recover. At the same time, they would also command the demon disaster to invade other places to plunder enough energy for them to recover and increase their strength. Not long after, a dilapidated fortress appeared in everyone's line of sight. Although there were no bloodstains on the walls of the fortress, there was a bloody and austere smell, as if there were still undying war spirits howling on it. The destruction of a fortress usually meant the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Therefore, the soldiers guarding the fortress were fine before the demon broke out of the seal. But once the demon broke out, the survival rate was close to zero. At this moment, a monstrous demonic aura was spreading out from the fortress. The clear sky had long disappeared, leaving only dense demonic aura that gathered into demonic clouds that covered the sky. When the scorching sun barely penetrated the demonic clouds and shone on the land, there was a kind of oppressive darkness. Bloody, oppressive, brutal. All kinds of inexplicable emotions surged into the hearts of the players, causing many of their expressions to change drastically. Everyone knew that there were demons in the stronghold. Even though the devilish skeletons didn't dare to approach the location of the sinister devils before receiving their orders, this place was much less dangerous than other places. But standing in front of the fortress, the pressure that Xiao Hong and the others felt was even greater than when they faced the mighty devil disaster. Chapter 449. Boom. The earth shook and buzzed as a 100-foot-tall skeleton, which looked like a giant beast, suddenly charged over from afar. Its ferocious and brutal aura instantly engulfed the surroundings. Quick! Use the insightful art. Many people's expressions changed when they saw the skeleton. Xiao Hong turned his head to look at the people in his team and said in a deep voice. Actually, he did not need to say anything. When the huge skeleton had appeared, someone had already used the insightful art to check the monster's attributes. This monster is called the Broken Bone Lord. As for its strength, it cannot be detected at all. After using the insightful art, a player said solemnly. Upon hearing that, the others also looked solemn, but they were not too shocked. Now that they were deep in the heart of the devil calamity, it was normal to encounter powerful monsters. If a true martial realm player could not detect it with the insightful art, the monster had to be at least at the spirit martial realm. However, in this place, regardless of whether it was at the spirit martial realm or the divine martial realm, it could only unleash the strength of a peak true martial realm. If Xiao Hong and the others had encountered the Broken Bone Lord in the Spirit Protectorate or above, they would have definitely run as far away as possible. However, in the True Dominion, given their strength, there was no need to run away. Furthermore, if they could not even deal with the Broken Bone Lord, then conquering the evil fiends would be a joke. After all, the Broken Bone Lord was just one of the devil calamities transformed by the evil fiends. No matter how powerful it was, it could not be compared to the evil fiends. On the contrary, they could take advantage of this opportunity to predict the evil fiend's strength in advance from the Broken Bone Lord. With a soft swoosh, a long sword pierced through the air and charged toward the Broken Bone Lord. The long sword sped forward as fast as lightning, creating a loud noise. In less than a breath, it had already arrived in front of the Broken Bone Lord. Boom! At an abnormal speed, the huge palm slapped toward the long sword. A terrifying force immediately bombarded the long sword and sent it flying. The sword-wielding player's face turned pale immediately, as if his spiritual force had suffered some damage. However, he recovered quickly and continued to control the long sword with his spiritual force to attack the Broken Bone Lord. These devil disaster skeletons were powerful, but their weakness was also the most obvious, and that was their soul fire. No matter how powerful a devil disaster skeleton was, as long as its soul flame was extinguished, it would immediately fall and turn into a pile of bones that would scatter, no longer able to be used by the evil demons. While the young man was flying on his sword, the other players also made their moves. This was not a personal battle. If they wanted to kill the boss, they had to clear all obstacles as quickly as possible and at the least cost. In an instant, astral energy streaked across the sky as numerous attacks shot toward Lord of Shattered Bones. Although the Bone Setter King was huge, its speed was also shockingly fast. Moreover, its attacks were powerful and heavy, far surpassing other monsters. The monster also knew where its weakness was. Every time someone tried to attack the soul fire, it would firmly protect itself, not giving the player the slightest chance. However, if players were to attack other areas, the Lord of Shattered Bones would not pay much attention to them. In terms of defensive power, the bone armor on his body was not much weaker than a spiritual weapon. It was not an easy task to break through such a defense. The battle unfolded very quickly, and it did not take long for it to reach a white-hot stage. A palm that was like a huge millstone came crushing down. A player could not dodge in time, and could only support his protective aura to block the Bone Setter King's attack. However, although the protective aura was strong, the Bone Setter King's attack was obviously stronger. With just one touch, the protective aura was directly shattered. However, there was also a gap in the middle, which allowed the player to successfully escape the attack range. Those who cultivate Frost True Essence slow down this monster's attack speed. Lu Qinghong immediately shouted. The NPCs in this game were no different from ordinary people. If one wanted to deal with them in the traditional way, it could only be said that the results were minimal. However, if one wanted to deal with monsters without intelligence, it was no different from the previous games. It could be said that there would be such people in every regular player team. Suddenly, more than a dozen players attacked, using their Frost True Essence to bombard the Bone Setter King's body. Although the Bone Setter King's body defense was strong, it was difficult to break its body defense with True Essence attacks. However, the goal of the players was not to rely on this to kill the opponent. They just wanted to use their Frost True Essence to slow down its movement and create opportunities for others. Immediately after, the leader of the team said, "Those who cultivate poison attribute cultivation methods or martial arts, try to see if you can corrode its bone armor. Those who have advanced movement techniques, try to interfere with the Bone Setter King's attack as much as possible. Those who have more powerful offensive martial arts, find a way to break the bone armor's defense and extinguish its soul fire." Orders were issued one after another. All the players attacked the Bone Setter King in an orderly manner. In a one-on-one battle, no one was a match for the Bone Setter King. However, with everyone working together, the Bone Setter King's movement suddenly slowed down. Although its attack was still fierce, for those who cultivated advanced movement techniques, such a slow speed was not very useful no matter how fierce the attack was. Although the bone armor's defense was comparable to a spiritual weapon, it was not invincible. Moreover, it was not like there were no players who had spiritual weapons. In addition, those who cultivated poison attribute cultivation methods and martial arts had a great corrosive effect on the bone armor. In this way, the Bone Setter King's defense was further weakened. Finally, under the intensive attacks, the Bone Setter King's bone armor finally showed signs of cracking. The moment the bone armor broke, a long sword flew out and disappeared into the Bone Setter King's eye socket in the blink of an eye. When the long sword went in, a shocking sword chi exploded. The flickering soul fire was like a flame that had been blown by the wind and was extinguished in an instant. The moment the soul fire was extinguished, the Bone Setter King's huge body fell to the ground like a wooden frame. Chao Hong looked back at the young man who put away the long sword and said with a fake smile, "Brother Bien, good move." However, there was an extremely serious look in his eyes. Bien Heng. He was one of the few strong players in the Baiyun Mansion. In terms of strength, Chao Hong was not confident that he could defeat him. When all the players were hovering in the true martial realm, Bien Heng had already stepped into the spiritual martial realm. One had to know. It had been more than 3 years in the game world, but there were still very few players who could advance to the spiritual martial realm. One of the problems was the cultivation method, and the other was the large amount of experience points needed to break through to the spiritual martial realm. It was easy to obtain a spiritual level cultivation method. With the means of the players, as long as they spent some time or found a way to join a sect in the spiritual realm, they would have a chance to get it. The real problem was the large amount of experience points needed to break through to the spiritual martial realm. Even Chao Hong himself, who had been at the peak of the true martial realm for a few months, was still a long way from breaking through to the spiritual martial realm. This showed how strong Bien Heng was. Even in the teams, there were only a few elite players who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Bien Heng in terms of realm. "You flatter me." Bien Heng smiled slightly, in a good mood. He had killed the Bone Setter King with a single strike and gained a lot of experience points. The facts proved that Bien Heng was indeed a monster in the spiritual martial realm. Even though the experience points given by the demon disaster skeletons were much less than those given by monsters, it was still extremely rich. As for the other players who had entered the spiritual god realm, their eyes flickered slightly. Although spiritual god realm cultivators could give birth to a spiritual god and strengthen their divine sense to a powerful extent, it was not something a spiritual god realm cultivator could do if they wanted to attach their divine sense to a longsword and reach the point of controlling a sword to kill enemies with peerless power. Bien Heng had definitely obtained some kind of martial arts to have such an ability. However, cultivation methods and martial arts were taboo for anyone. Although they had some guesses in their hearts, it was not good for them to say too much. The Bone Setter King is already dead. This monster should have been deliberately sent by the demons to stop us after noticing our arrival. Now that this monster is dead, the main culprit might be waiting for us to enter. Lu Qingheng looked at the fortress in front of him that was filled with demonic energy and said with a solemn expression, "The battle just now had caused quite a commotion, but until now, they had not seen any movement from the demons. With the strength of the demons, it was impossible for them not to have noticed anything. The current situation could only mean that the other party was already aware of everything and was just waiting for them to enter. In fact, from the moment they stepped into the demonic land, the demons had already noticed their existence." Thinking of this, many people felt heavy in their hearts. Although the Bone Setter King did not cause much damage to the team, the powerful strength that the other party displayed also gave them a lot of pressure. Looking at the big picture, from the Bone Setter King's strength, one could more or less infer how powerful the demons were. In fact, many people were already prepared for this. After a short silence, Bien Heng said calmly, "Since this boss is so confident, then let's go in and take a good look. If we want the demons to come out, why do we have to go deep into the tiger's den?" "Brother Chow, what do you mean?" "Just watch." A mysterious smile appeared on Chow Hong's face. Then, a jade ring on his hand flickered, and a sealed package appeared in his hand. When they saw this, Bien Heng and the others were also moved. A storage ring. Storage rings were true treasures among players. They were extremely expensive, and players who could obtain such treasures could only be said to be rare. Even Bien Heng himself did not have a storage ring. It was not that he could not get it. It was because the price to get it was too high, so he was not willing to get it. But even so, Chow Hong had a storage ring in his hand, which proved that the other party's financial resources were not as simple as it seemed. "This is explosives?" Someone saw the thing in the other party's hand and asked in surprise. "Explosives?" Hearing this, the others also turned their gazes over, their expressions changing unpredictably. They did not think that Chow Hong would take out explosives. Explosives, whether in the game world or the real world, basically existed. Coupled with the realism of the game world, almost everything that existed in the real world, as long as it could be manufactured step by step, the power would be the same. But the problem was, the manufacturing of many powerful weapons required very complicated steps, and because of the difference between the two worlds, the materials were also very different, so it was very difficult to manufacture. Some simple guns and cannons could be manufactured, but those things were not very powerful. It could be used to deal with ordinary people, but to deal with cultivators, it was far from enough. Not to mention other things. When a cultivator reached the level of copper skin and iron bones, their defensive power would greatly increase, and the threat of guns and cannons would be reduced by 70%. If they reached the peak of basic martial realm, their body would become one, and they would be able to ignore the threat of guns and cannons. In the early days of the game, there were still some knowledgeable players who would make these things to kill monsters and level up. But now that he had leveled up, these things were basically obsolete. Among them, the explosives in Chow Hong's hand were included. The power of explosives was not fake, but cultivators were born with strong senses. As long as the explosives were detonated, just by jumping up in the air, the explosives would not have any effect. As for large amounts of explosives, although they could pose a threat to some true martial realm cultivators, the amount needed was too large, and the gains and losses were not proportional. And when sieging a city, explosives were not very useful. Basically, Every city had runes engraved on it to protect the safety of the city walls, to prevent a powerful cultivator from destroying the city walls in just a few moves. So, things in the real world had very little use in the game world. At this moment, when they saw Chao Hong take out these things, the others were very surprised, because these things were completely useless. Could it be that he was going to use explosives to blow up the demons? Chao Hong smiled and said, "If the demons don't come out, then we'll invite them out. The only protection of the stronghold is this city wall. Now that the stronghold has been breached by the demons, the runes on the city wall have long disappeared. At this time, explosives will naturally come in handy." The city wall was very large. Destroying it by relying on manpower alone would not only take time, but also a lot of true essence. On the contrary, if they used explosives to blow up the city wall, it would be much simpler. Even if the demons had made any arrangements, it would be within the stronghold. As long as the city wall was gone, all the arrangements would be useless. Then, they saw Chao Hong continuously take out packs of explosives from his storage ring and pass them to the other players in the team. Then, they saw these people pile up the explosives at the foot of the city wall. Not long after, there were thousands of explosives piled up at the foot of the stronghold. Many people frowned when they saw this, and their expressions turned solemn. Thousands of explosives. Once such a force exploded, even the earth energy shield of a physical invulnerability realm cultivator would be shattered. After the last explosive pack was placed in place, Tang Wulin took a deep breath. Chao Hong said, "Everyone, step back a little to avoid being affected." Hearing this, the others immediately stepped back a little. Some of them had already activated their true essence, ready to deal with what would happen next. When everyone retreated, Chao Hong also retreated a very far distance. Then, a fiery Jinyuan blasted out in the air and directly fell on top of one of the explosive packs. The next moment, boom, an earth-shattering sound, as if the earth had cracked, instantly resounded through the sky. Immediately after, a powerful heat wave swept out in all directions. At this moment, all the cultivators spread out their protective earth energy to resist the heat wave. At this moment, their eyes all fell on the city wall of the stronghold, wanting to see if the explosives would work. In the eyes of the players, the city wall was like a piece of paper. Under the impact of the heat wave, it disintegrated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The moment the stronghold shattered, a terrifying and tyrannical aura suddenly burst out from within. "How dare you!" An earth-shattering thunder roared. A terrifying figure that was nearly 300 feet tall had already stepped out of the stronghold. Everywhere it passed, there was a vast fiend chi. The heat wave caused by the explosion was drowned by the surging fiend chi. Evil Lord Sun Soul was filled with killing intent. His huge eyes stared coldly at the numerous players in front of him. He had already sensed these people when they had stepped into the fiend territory. However, to these people, Evil Lord Sun Soul did not take them to heart at all. As an evil spirit of the fiend abyss, he was born as a heavenly being realm expert. He also had the advantage of a powerful physical body. There were very few people in the same realm who could be on par with him. In the true dominion, he was comparable to an expert who had condensed the universal heavenly lock. According to Evil Lord Sun Soul's understanding of this world, the experts who had condensed the universal heavenly lock seemed to have perished. As for those who were also heavenly being realm experts, he was not the least bit afraid of occupying a dominant position in the fiend territory. In Evil Lord Sun Soul's opinion, Chao Hong and the others were more like something to adjust his mood after being sealed for thousands of years. He would slowly toy with them like a cat playing with a mouse. The bone-shattering lord had been a monster he had casually created and released to test the strength of the players. However, based on the previous battle, these people were indeed not weak. However, not weak was only a relative term. In Evil Lord Sun Soul's opinion, Chao Hong and the others were just slightly stronger ants. He had even planned to sit still in the stronghold and slowly create some monsters to play with them. In the end, Chao Hong had directly used explosives to blow up the stronghold's walls. Evil Lord Sun Soul was so angry that he exploded. Given the evil spirit's experience, he naturally did not recognize explosives. Furthermore, the force of the explosion could only threaten true martial realm cultivators at most. It would not cause any harm to spirit martial realm cultivators. In the past, he would not have cared about such things. However, he was truly disgusted by these explosives. When Evil Lord Sun Soul appeared, the faces of Chao Hong and the others turned solemn. Evil Spirit. Use the insight technique to check his attributes. His name is Evil Lord Sun Soul. I can't see any other information. A player used the insight technique to take a look and immediately shook his head. Even the bone-shattering lord's attributes could not be seen, let alone the evil spirit that created the bone-shattering lord. That terrifying aura and the body that was like a small mountain made everyone feel a great pressure. Such pressure. Among all the bosses they had encountered, Evil Lord Sun Soul was the first. Looking at the hill-like Evil Lord Sun Soul, Lu Qinghong's mind was also shaken. His gaze kept sweeping back and forth, trying to find the evil spirit's weakness. Before coming here, he had tried to find the evil spirit's weakness on the forum. But unfortunately, since the appearance of the evil spirit, there had never been a player who had defeated it, let alone a weakness. It could be said that it was not that there were no players who had killed their way to the evil spirit, but there was not a single player who had completed the mission to kill the evil spirit. Everyone was well aware of how powerful this kind of boss that no one had defeated yet was. After scanning back and forth a few times, Lu Qinghong said in a low voice, "It is said that the evil spirit's physical body is extremely strong. Its weakness should be the weak parts of its body. It is the same as us humans. It also has 5 vital organs, so it mainly attacks these places." Hearing this, Bian Hang and the others turned around and nodded to each other, tacitly agreeing with each other's words. The huge body of the evil Lord Sun Soul in front of them gave off too much pressure. Therefore, they did not dare to delay for too long. Otherwise, before the boss was defeated, they would be scared before the battle even started. "Go!" Bian Hang roared angrily. The spirit god immediately controlled the long sword and took the lead to cut through the sky, charging towards Evil Lord Sun Soul. Immediately after, the other players also made their moves. Looking at the long sword coming towards him, Evil Lord Sun Soul revealed a mocking smile. Then, the pillar-like fingers stretched out, and demonic energy surged, turning into a terrifying finger aura that directly bombarded over. Bang! With a loud bang, the long sword let out a mournful cry and was instantly sent flying by the terrifying force. At the same time, the divine will on the sword body also dissipated in an instant. Bian Heng spat out a mouthful of blood and had already suffered quite a serious injury. So strong. This was the only thought in Bian Heng's mind. Without truly fighting with the evil spirit, one would never be able to understand how terrifying a boss of this level was. Ever since he obtained the spirit god's sword technique, he had been invincible. Even if he encountered some strong opponents, there had never been anyone who could defeat his spirit god in a single strike. One must know that for this kind of spirit god sword technique, the strongest was the spirit god, and the weakest was also the spirit god. Once the spirit god on the long sword was defeated, the person controlling the sword would also be severely injured. Subsequently, Bian Heng took out a pill and consumed it to alleviate the injuries on his body. Then, he used his divine sense to recall the long sword. There were already some cracks on the sword's body, and its spirituality had also dissipated by a lot. Seeing this, Bian Heng's heart ached again. In order to obtain this spiritual artifact, he had paid a heavy price. In the end, this spiritual artifact was almost destroyed in a single exchange. How could he not feel heartache? Chapter 450. Boom, boom. The battle between the players and the evil demons reached its climax as soon as Zero Wing took action. Or rather, the players were suppressed by the evil fiend after just one exchange. Evil Lord Sun Soul was a heavenly man major cultivator. Even in the True Dominion, he was equivalent to an expert who had condensed 2 or 3 universal skylocks. In the True Dominion, when both of them were at the peak true martial realm, a cultivator who had condensed one universal skylock was more than twice as powerful as a cultivator who had not condensed one. This was not just twice as powerful. It was an all-around suppression. If the two of them exchanged blows, it would be easy for the person who had condensed the universal skylock to suppress the person who had not condensed the universal skylock. It was the same logic. An existence who had condensed one universal skylock would be much weaker than an existence who had condensed 2 or 3 universal skylocks. This suppression was on a completely different level. It was hard to understand if one had not reached this level. Although Chao Hong and the others knew that the evil devil's strength was comparable to an expert who had condensed the universal heavenly lock, there were differences in the strength of the universal heavenly lock. The strongest expert was someone like Qin Shu Jian, who had condensed 4 universal heavenly locks. However, based on their understanding, an ordinary evil fiend would not be able to condense 4 universal sky locks. That was also why Chao Hong and the others had the confidence to defeat this evil fiend. After all, it was no exaggeration to say that the people gathered here were the elite players of the Fallen Moon Manor. Their strength and techniques were so strong that they could even contend with a great cultivator who was at the flight manifestation realm. However, no one would have thought that the strength of the universal heavenly lock would completely exceed the scope of their expectations. Boom! Demonic chi turned into threads that easily penetrated the physical invulnerability quintessential essence. Then, a 7th-level true martial realm player turned into white light and dissipated before he could even resist. Chao Hong's heart sank when he saw this. What other techniques do you have? Don't hide them anymore. Otherwise, no one will benefit. A player shouted angrily after dodging Evil Lord Sun Soul's fatal attack. The moment he finished speaking, he had already taken out a jade stone and crushed it. Thousands of array patterns appeared and instantly formed an array formation that swallowed Evil Lord Sun Soul. In an instant, Evil Lord Sun Soul's huge body had already disappeared. Formation. Looking at the scene before him, Chao Hong's eyes flickered. He was no stranger to formations. The master of Mount Liang, who he had always wanted to conquer, was a grandmaster of formations. He could be said to be a top-notch powerhouse in the field of formations. This is only a grandmaster level formation. It shouldn't be able to trap the demons for long. Before that person could finish his words, the runes on the array crumbled and Evil Lord Sun Soul walked out from within. However, this short delay was enough for the others to react. Bien Heng took out a jade talisman and crushed it. A terrifying aura Qi Tru Yuan shot out from the jade talisman and bombarded Evil Lord Sun Soul. This was a jade talisman that he had paid a huge price to obtain. It contained an attack from a god martial realm expert. However, in the true dominion, such a one-time technique would be suppressed by heaven and earth. Therefore, the jade talisman, which should have been comparable to a divine martial strike, was only at the limit of a true martial artist. But even so, this attack was not something he could unleash at his current stage. When Bien Heng made his move, the others no longer held back and used all their trump cards. The evil demons were too strong. If they did not injure and cripple the other party first, they would not be able to play anymore. All of the attacks gathered together, forming a mighty force that was frightening. Like a torrential current, it slammed onto the body of Evil Lord Sun Soul. Rumble. Boom. Boom. All the attacks exploded. Evil Lord Sun Soul's huge body could not withstand it and retreated a few steps. Blood flowed out of his wounds. Upon seeing this, the players all smiled faintly. But soon, the smiles on their faces stiffened. Under the surging fiendish chi, the wounds on Evil Lord Sun Soul's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a breath's time, all the wounds disappeared and a terrifying aura spread. Chao Hong could not help but curse. How could they continue playing? His wounds were healed instantly. This was an unlimited recovery of blood. It had not been easy for him to take out all his trump cards, but they had all recovered in a few seconds. This made him feel like he had wasted all his efforts. As for the others, their reactions were not any better than Chao Hong's. It was true that the evil demons were strong, but no one knew that apart from being strong, this boss's recovery ability was also heaven-defying. If they knew, they would not have taken down this boss so easily. It did not matter if his defense was strong. It did not matter if his attacks were unparalleled. Even if his recovery ability was strong, it was still acceptable. After playing the game for so many years, Chao Hong and the others had encountered all kinds of bosses. However, most of them only had one advantage, and the other two were their weaknesses. However, for a boss like Evil Lord Sun Soul with shocking defense, shocking attack, and shocking recovery ability, there was no way to play with it. Retreat. Chao Hong made a decision right away. Unless one's strength was absolutely overwhelming, it would be impossible to kill a boss like this bit by bit. Moreover, with the strength of both sides, it was not certain who would be the one killing who. If they retreated now, it would be equivalent to stopping their losses. Otherwise, the losses would increase. The other player teams had similar thoughts as Chao Hong. However, if they wanted to retreat, they had to ask Evil Lord Sun Soul for permission. Humans, you have successfully infuriated me. Evil Lord Sun Soul roared out. As a celestial evil demon, to think that he would be injured by an ant-like human, this was an insult to him. If he did not devour Chao Hong and the others today, he would not be able to vent the anger in his heart. Hence, just as Chao Hong and the others were about to retreat, Evil Lord Sun Soul took a step forward, and a palm came crashing down like a collapsing mountain. Monstrous demonic energy exploded, and a black and red energy palm covered everyone. Boom! The players also counterattacked. Everyone's strength was pushed to the limit, and a terrifying energy exploded. When the two collided, a terrifying shockwave spread out. The moment the black and red energy palm shattered, everyone's hearts shook and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Some players did not even have time to scream before they were killed by the shockwave. Under this attack, hundreds of players were injured, and a few players died. The evil demon's power was shocking. How are we supposed to fight this? Some players were both angry and desperate. The two sides were not on the same level. No matter how they fought, they could not be his opponent. As for Chao Hong, Bian Hang, and the other team leaders, their expressions were gloomy, and they were already thinking of a way out. If they wanted to retreat, Evil Lord Sun Soul would not give them the chance. In the previous head-on clash, they had already experienced the other party's strength. Evil Lord Sun Soul suddenly tilted his head and looked at the distant sky. His huge eyes were filled with seriousness. This scene was immediately seen by the others. What's going on? Could it be that another expert has come? Regarding Evil Lord Sun Soul's actions, some players had already made their guesses, and their hearts were filled with anticipation. In the current situation, their teams could be said to be in a desperate situation. Any sudden change would not make the situation worse. Instead, it would give them a chance to turn the situation around. The players' thoughts, Evil Lord Sun Soul did not know, and did not want to know. In his eyes, these humans were as weak as ants, and he only needed to use a bit of strength to get rid of them. What was worth paying attention to was the powerful aura that was coming from afar. Just then, Evil Lord Sun Soul felt a warning in his heart. At the same time, he sensed that there was an expert stepping into the demonic land. That tyrannical aura made even him feel a little apprehensive. The Great Zhao has already sent a celestial? Evil Lord Sun Soul's mind was filled with thoughts. While guessing where that aura came from, he did not feel much fear. So what if it was a celestial from the Great Zhao? He was also a celestial, and he did not need to fear anyone. The reason why he was suppressed was not because he was defeated by the humans, but because he was defeated by the combined forces of several celestials. Now, it was different. In Evil Lord Sun Soul's senses, there was only one aura coming, which meant that there was only one person. You dare to come alone. You don't know your place. At this moment, the players finally sensed the tyrannical aura. Both sides involuntarily looked in the same direction, where a black dot was rapidly approaching. The black dot was moving extremely quickly. Occasionally, there would be flying demon disaster monsters that would come forward, but in less than a breath's time, they would be turned into dust. Soon, the black dot gradually grew bigger. With the player's current realm, their eyesight was extremely powerful, so they could naturally see the appearance of the person. After seeing the other party's appearance, Chao Hong's heart shook violently. Cold Mountain Stronghold Master. Actually, there was no need for him to say it, as some people had already recognized the person. However, not everyone could remember Qin Shujian's appearance. Therefore, when Chao Hong blurted out the words Cold Mountain Stronghold Master, it instantly caused a huge commotion. Cold Mountain Stronghold Master. Sect Yuan's Sect Master. This was a famous big boss, and all the players had heard of his name. In addition, Qin Shujian also had the title of the #1 expert in the cultivation world of Baiyun Manor. After all, there were no top sects in Baiyun Manor, nor did any sect have a celestial. Qin Shujian's identity as an Array Dao Grandmaster and his powerful strength naturally made him the #1 expert. However, this title had not been very well known at first. However, the opening of the Yuan Pavilion and the subsequent series of events had completely pushed Qin Shujian's prestige to the peak. Cold Mountain Stronghold Master? Naturally, Evil Lord Sun Soul could hear what the players were saying. He could not help but feel a little puzzled. He had never heard of this title before. Stronghold Master? The last title sounded more like the leader of some mountain stronghold bandits. Since when had the great Zhao become so powerful? How could a mountain stronghold leader possess such powerful strength? Just as Qin Shujian was closing in, Evil Lord Sun Soul could already tell that the other party had not reached the celestial level. However, his aura was not much weaker than his in the true dominion. On the other side, Qin Shujian was also approaching at an extremely fast speed. Evil Lord Sun Soul's 300 feet tall body was simply too eye-catching. It was very difficult to not see him. After receiving the information from the Imperial Court, he had rushed to one of the places without stopping. He wanted to kill all the evil spirits in front of everyone. Therefore, after arriving at the Fallen Moon Manor, Qin Shujian had immediately barged into the Devil Calamity and prepared to kill the evil spirits with lightning speed. However, after arriving, he realized that things were a little different from what he had imagined. There were not only evil spirits here, but also players. It was not difficult for Qin Shujian to distinguish whether they were players or not. When his Dharma eye swept over, he could roughly tell. He had not expected that players would kill their way into this place. Based on their stance, it was obvious that they wanted to rob him. To this, Qin Shujian's heart was also filled with anger. He had wanted to kill the evil spirits wholeheartedly, but players had wanted to rob him. Fortunately, these players' strength was average. If they were really strong enough, it would not have been his turn this time. At this time, Qin Shujian had already arrived near Evil Lord Sun Soul and stopped floating in the air. Then, he used his Dharma Eye and Evil Lord Sun Soul's attributes appeared in his mind. Compared to the Spiritual Eye, this time, the Dharma Eye revealed one more attribute. Name, Evil Lord Sun Soul Realm. Peak of the True Martial Realm, Level 5 of the Heaven Human Realm. Seeing this, Qin Shujian's eyes flickered. With the strength of Level 5 of the Heaven Human Realm, Evil Lord Sun Soul was at least at the same level as the Moon-Devouring Beast King. He might even be stronger than the Moon-Devouring Beast King. But to him, Evil Lord Sun Soul's strength was not as tempting as the changes brought by the Dharma Eye. Directly seeing through the enemy's cultivation realm was a practical ability. However, when he activated his Spiritual Eye, on the other hand, Qin Shujian saw that Evil Lord Sun Soul also had an Azure Providence. However, above the Azure Providence, there was a black-red Providence covering it. It gave off an ominous feeling. Evil spirits also have luck? A doubt arose in his mind, but it quickly dissipated. It didn't matter if evil spirits had luck or not. To him, it was even better if evil spirits had luck. At least when facing a strong evil spirit, he would have another way to deal with it. When Qin Shujian appeared, Evil Lord Sun Soul's gaze landed on him as well. His tyrannical voice rang out in the air. "Who are you? How dare you enter my demonic land? I'm here to save you." Save? You're covered in dark clouds and a bloody light. I'm afraid you're going to face a bloody disaster soon. If it's serious, you might even lose your life. This is going to be tough. Qin Shujian looked at Evil Lord Sun Soul with his hands behind his back and said with a faint smile, "Ridiculous. Evil Lord Sun Soul laughed in anger. He did not believe Qin Shujian's words at all. Qin Shujian said, "The reason why you're in such bad luck is because you met me today. I'd like to see where you get your confidence from." The moment the words left Evil Lord Sun Soul's mouth, he sent out a palm strike that shook the void and crushed down on Qin Shujian. Qin Shujian's aura was powerful, but in his eyes, humans who had not reached the celestial being realm were no different from ants. At most, he would need to use a little more effort to deal with stronger ants. The moment Evil Lord Sun Soul attacked, Chao Hong and the others held their breaths and watched the development of the situation without moving. For them, now that Qin Shujian had appeared, it was undoubtedly a good thing. Evil spirits were comparable to experts who had formed the universal heavenly lock, and so was Qin Shujian. The battle between the two sides would definitely be extremely tragic. They might even have a chance to take this opportunity to pick up ahead. As long as they killed the evil spirit, the Imperial Court's mission would be considered complete. Under everyone's gaze, thunderbolts suddenly emerged and turned into a powerful shield of upstanding qi, enveloping Qin Shujian's entire body. The next second, Evil Lord Sun Soul's palm had already descended. The two collided, and the lightning instantly went berserk. The moment the protective shield shattered, Evil Lord Sun Soul let out a cry of pain and had no choice but to withdraw his palm. The originally huge palm was now charred black, as if it had suffered a terrifying attack. The charred skin cracked and blood flowed continuously from the wound. As the demonic qi surged, the wound was completely healed. This confrontation, it ended with Qin Shujian having the advantage. Although the protective thunderbolt was broken, the counterattack of the protective shield caused some minor injuries to Evil Lord Sun Soul. "My strength is a little lacking. It's my turn now." Qin Shujian took a step forward. His originally 7-foot body suddenly grew taller, turning into a 300-foot giant. At the same time, a violent force erupted. At the same time, he threw a punch at Evil Lord Sun Soul. In an instant, the terrifying power was vast and mighty, causing everyone's mind to waver. The sudden turn of events shocked Demon Lord Sun Soul. The greatest advantage of evil spirits was their physical body. Now that Qin Shujian's body had grown bigger, this gap was immediately closed. However, he couldn't be shocked for too long because the opponent's attack had already arrived. Evil Lord Sun Soul immediately punched out. Shortly after, the two fists collided. Boom! The aftershock appeared between the two, instantly turning into a violent wind that swept across the world, causing the demonic qi in the sky to show signs of dissipating. Kill. In the previous exchange, the two sides were evenly matched. Qin Shujian's eyes narrowed, and he unleashed his full strength. Crash! The 4 heavenly locks of the universe pierced the heavens and the earth, traversing the void. The aura on Qin Shujian's body skyrocketed in an instant, and he threw out another punch. When the terrifying power erupted, it directly caused the void to explode, followed by a white airwave sweeping out. 4 universal heavenly locks. Evil Lord Sun Soul was shocked. The 4 chains that pierced through the void had caused a great impact on his mind. He knew that Qin Shujian wasn't weak, but he didn't expect that his opponent would be an expert who had condensed 4 universal heavenly locks. Boom! Another punch, as if he had mobilized the power of the entire demonic land. The demonic qi turned into a huge fist aura that met the attack. A face-to-face exchange. The fist aura shattered. A power that far exceeded what Evil Lord Sun Soul could withstand exploded, causing the skin on his arm to crack and blood to gush out like a fountain. Before Evil Lord Sun Soul could be shocked, Qin Shujian's attack came again. Boom! Boom! Evil Lord Sun Soul's body retreated. His flesh cracked and blood splattered across the sky. From the beginning, he was at a disadvantage. Qin Shujian's killing intent piled up. Every punch he threw out could cause Evil Lord Sun Soul's body to crack. This made the demon in front of him not look like an expert who had condensed the universal heavenly locks, but an ordinary peak true martial realm cultivator. The divine realm martial art, lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, original avatar of heaven and earth, has been changed, would not only increase his physique, but his physical strength would also increase as his physique grew bigger. This was the terrifying part of this martial art. Or else, if it only increased his body size without increasing his strength, the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth wouldn't be called a divine martial art. This was the only reason why Qin Shujian felt that this divine martial art was very similar to the techniques he had heard of in his previous life. His strength had already reached the level of condensing 4 universal heavenly locks. Then there was the divine martial art lawful embodiment of heaven and earth to support him. The combination of the two directly raised his strength to a terrifying level. Although it was still 4 universal heavenly locks, in terms of true strength, it couldn't be compared. This was also why. It was why Evil Lord Sun Soul was at a disadvantage in just one exchange. As for Chao Hong and the rest, they were all in a daze. They knew that Qin Shujian was very strong. After all, the title of Cold Mountain Stockade Master had never been fake. But no matter how strong he was, there was no reason for him to be this strong. The tyrannical Evil Lord Sun Soul was like a 3-year-old child in front of Qin Shujian. He was easily crushed and didn't even have the right to fight back. Compared to the situation where they were completely crushed by Evil Lord Sun Soul, it was a completely different situation. Such a strong contrast made Chao Hong and the others a little difficult to accept. At this moment, as Qin Shujian punched out again, Evil Lord Sun Soul's body was instantly sent flying. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and the Great Wilderness Demon Suppression Seal landed. After comprehending the true meaning of sealing, the Great Wilderness Demon Suppression Seal had undergone a transformation. After taking a direct hit from the Great Desolation Devil Suppressing Seal, Evil Lord Sun Soul immediately realized that the demonic qi in his body had been forcefully sealed by some kind of powerful force. Just as he was about to break through the seal, another attack came. Bang! Under the punch, his body exploded. Demonic qi rushed over to repair his body, but it couldn't keep up with the speed of destruction. Under such an attack, Evil Lord Sun Soul had no chance to break through the seal. Instantly. Thus, the evil spirit became a living target, allowing Qin Shujian to attack as he pleased. In the end, when the demonic qi completely disappeared, the injuries on Evil Lord Sun Soul's body stopped recovering. Boom! His mountainous body was sent flying. Evil Lord Sun Soul smashed into the ruins of the fortress, obliterating the last vestiges of the fortress. Then, Qin Shujian released 27 square array discs from his storage ring. In less than a breath, a large array was formed and swallowed him and Evil Lord Sun Soul. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.